Hello everyone, we'll be starting in about 5 minutes. This is just me testing to make sure my microphone is working, so you can say hello in the chat if it is. My microphone is working, so you can say hello in the chat if it is. Hi everyone. If you heard a strange echo, it's because I had the live stream open on my computer. So the music was going out to you and into my computer and then out to you again. So apologize, I have fixed that. And we are starting in about 45 seconds. Hello everyone, good morning, happy Saturday. Welcome to the Coding Train. It's me, Dan, we're on the internet together. I'm so excited today. Ooh, I have an extra light that I need to turn on. I forgot to turn this light on. Do I look better now? This side of my face looks more like it's supposed to. I don't know what to say. I'm so excited for today. This is a special Saturday live stream. I have a guest that I'm super excited to share her work with you and have her teach me something or show me how to do something which I have never done before. And actually, let me just briefly get started by saying, and here's our guest up on the screen. You see Chrissy Brimmage, and this is an image of her work. But what I want to quickly tell you and say is I, for the first time ever in my life, installed something called Blender on this very laptop this morning. And you can see right up here on the top right of my screen, there it is. I just installed it because I'm going to try to follow along and, you know, or at least look at Blender again a little bit later today. So if you want to get a head start and try to follow along with the tutorial stuff that we're going to do in about 15 minutes or so, download Blender. And there's a link to where you can download Blender in the video description. Let me make sure it's there. So I'm pulling that up now, and you can see, there it is. So first of all, here's Chrissy's website, her Instagram, so check those out. I'm going to talk a bit more about Chrissy and introduce her work and show you a reel of her work in a moment, as well as the link to download Blender. And oh, this is really important because the example that we're going to work with today is making your very own Mew. I don't know if Chrissy actually knew this, but I'm kind of you know, I mean, I'm out in the open about my love for Pokemon, so, but there's a lot of Pokemon going on in this household. In fact, I've got a lot of toys and characters and things and plushies around that I could bring, but I'll save that for later. But you can get this Mew reference image, and also make sure you download and install Blender, which is not required. You can just watch and enjoy and participate, but I encourage you to download Blender. Okay, Alexander asks, will this be a tutorial on the software or is there going to be a coding aspect? So today is not really the day that we're going to look at coding. It's really like a basic introduction to Blender, and I think one of the things that's exciting about it is just about everything that I do is very 2D graphics oriented in P5 or processing. So this is really also a bit of an introduction to sort of thinking in terms of 3D. And you know, my hope is that if I can learn a little bit from Chrissy about how to use Blender, and it might be something that I add to my workflow. And one of the things that I would love to do if I make my own Pokemon Mew in Blender, maybe I'll see if I can export it and import it to a P5.js sketch or a processing sketch. That would certainly be a fun thing to try. I'm just taking a look at the chat. V Specky says, I love Pokemon so darn much. All right. Me too, V Specky. Okay, so what do I want to say? Quick just sort of like notes and logistics from the Coding Train. So it's the summer. As you know, I'm not at my NYU workspace where I record a lot of video tutorials, so things are a little bit off kilter. I am doing live streams from this home location that I'm in Brooklyn. I recently released a video on marching squares, which is an algorithm that you can make interesting, beautiful patterns with. So that came out yesterday, and I encourage you to, if you make your own creative version of marching squares, you can add, there's only one community contribution here right now, and I do hope to have a live stream next week where I will go through and look at some of these community contributions and show them and analyze them, as well as maybe investigate marching cubes. Because today, oh, it's so perfect. I couldn't have imagined this better myself. I did not plan, but the next thing I wanted to try once I did marching squares was marching cubes, which is taking marching squares from 2D to 3D. And that's the topic of today, going from 2D to 3D. So that's what's going on in the Coding Train these days. Today is part of my guest conductor series. I want to also highlight for you, let's see if I can pull this up if I go to the channel, the previous two guest conductors. Amigos Code, and if I scroll back a little bit further, there she is, Erin Davey from the Twitch channel Cozy Coding. So check out Amigos Code channel on YouTube, and then Erin live streams very regularly on Twitch, making all sorts of what she likes to call, I think, like P5JS jam sessions, and every example that she's made in P5JS that comes out of that is just so delightful. And so if you're looking for more experimental, creative fun with code and P5JS, definitely check out Erin Davies' Cozy Coding Train. Oh, and we got a donation, which means when we get a donation that I have to thank you with a random number, because that's the weird stuff that I do on the coding train. So I'm going to take my, let me switch back to this view here. Oops, nope, wrong view. Here we go. Okay, so I have my book, A Million Random Digits. Thank you, Anonymous, for your donation. I'm going to talk about the Tender Foundation in just a moment. And for you, you will have, your random number is oh no, the book's falling apart. That's terrible. Well, we'll use this page. Excellent. All right, stop. Okay, 98,008. Thank you very much. So let me talk to you about the Tender Foundation. I want to thank Chrissy, who, again, I'll introduce in a moment, for introducing me to the Tender Foundation. I was not familiar with Tender before. The Tender Foundation is a non-for-profit based in Atlanta, Georgia. It's run by Jacina Almond, or founded by her, and it supports mothers in need. Being a parent, I'm not a mother, I am a father, is a really challenging and difficult, wonderful thing, but I've been so lucky in my life to be able to have the resources to not worry too much about things like diapers and food. And not everyone is so lucky, and the Tender Foundation is doing some amazing work in Atlanta, Georgia, to help mothers. So I could talk a little bit about the Tender Foundation. All the donations that you make through this live stream go directly to the Tender Foundation. YouTube, through their giving program, covers all the fees, and I'm also going to match the goal. I set a goal for $500. I'm going to match a $500 donation as well. So what I want to do is play you a quick video message from Jacina Almond, who is the founder of the Tender Foundation, to tell you a little bit more about their work. Okay, so give me a second here. Hopefully this is going to come up. I'm going to, let me actually turn off the air conditioning, which is making a noise, I realized. And let me click over to her video, and I'm going to mute myself.
Hi, my name is Jacina Almond, the founder of the Tender Foundation based in Atlanta, Georgia. First off, I just want to say we're so grateful to Chrissy and the Coding Train for allowing us this opportunity and supporting our work. At Tender, we are committed to empowering all moms by making the essentials accessible. We do this through our Family Stabilization Program. The program provides emergency financial assistance with rent, utilities, grocery store gift cards, and other necessities like diapers and wipes to our moms. We do this work with a lot of heart and a little hassle. We believe our process is streamlined, simple. We really just stand in the gap and act as a safety net for all of the families living on the margins that are typically under-resourced. And so we really just like to surround our moms in love and really destigmatize the process of being vulnerable enough to ask for help. And so yeah, that's what we do. And again, I'm super, super grateful for this opportunity, and I'm so excited to learn something with Chrissy. So thanks so much.
All right, thank you, Jacina, for your message. Thank you for sharing your work with us and all of the work that you do. I hope that we can raise a little money and help support the Tender Foundation. We just got a donation, thank you very much, from Japs. And a couple people in the chat mentioned that they can't donate through YouTube because it's not available in their country. I will mention that, of course, you are also welcome to go donate directly on the Tender Foundation's website. There's a little link here, click under donate, and you can make a donation there. So if you're not able to donate and you would like to, not able to donate through the YouTube interface and you would like to, go directly to their website. you want to tweet me a receipt or something, you're welcome to, and I'll send you a nice little thank you message. You don't need to do that. I'm just saying if you feel like you want to be acknowledged with your donation, I would love to know about it and thank you for it personally. Okay. So I think I am ready for the next stage here, which is to introduce, I actually made like a schedule, and it says like, I never do this because I'm so disorganized, but it says next on my schedule is an introduction to Chrissy's work, and I'm actually 5 minutes ahead of schedule, which is amazing. So I'm going to pull up Chrissy Brimmage's website. Thank you. Oh, I forgot to thank Sai, who is the, which I should have done right from the outset, who is the CodingTrain community manager. I realize I'm not in the video here. Oh, we got another donation from Stein Ovid Brathammer. Thank you very much. A train whistle for you for that donation. Someone in the chat is asking me, why don't I use donation alert? Yeah, I tried to hook it up so that the lights blink with donations, but I couldn't get that to work. So maybe I can figure that out for the next. I hope to do more fundraising. So if somebody knows how to get the YouTube API with donations. It works for all the other kind of transaction stuff, but for some reason the donations aren't coming up. But that's not what's important. It's nice when the lights blink, but alas, we will enjoy ourselves. And your donation is really, I'm really grateful, and thank you for that. Oh, but most importantly, I wanted to thank Sai, who is the CodingTrain community manager. Sai is the curator and co-producer of the Guest Conductor series. I was not familiar with Chrissy's work until Sai introduced me to them. And so I was so thrilled and just like marveling at the beauty of different projects on the website, and really excited. I'm always excited when somebody whose practice is different than mine can share how they work, things that they have learned, things that they want to share about how their practice is, and kind of explore their creative process as a guest on the Coding Train. So let me play for you Chrissy's reel so you can get a sense of the kind of art and projects that she makes with Blender and other tools. And then I'm going to also just read from her bio on the website. So now her reel is coming up here. And so Chrissy is a multidisciplinary artist living and working out of Brooklyn by way of Atlanta, Georgia. And her work utilizes the opportunities and constraints of digital space to research social phenomena of the material world. She's currently interested in the function of identity, dreaming of futures beyond oppressive systems, defining freedom, reworking ideas of justice, and how to integrate mediums such as illustration, code, design, animation, 3D modeling, and VR to communicate, explore, and bridge her personal perceptions of these issues, as well as the variations in perceptions between different social identities. So one of the things that I love about Chrissy's website, and the reel is repeating here, is that I think when you are working with code, you can get so lost in the technical and are working with digital media that sometimes you can sort of forget like why it is you're doing that. And on Chrissy's website, I'm going to pull that up over here. She lists these 4 questions that she's been asking herself. What world do I want to live in? What is identity and how is it used? What does freedom beyond oppression feel like? Can we expand our perceptions of the world through VR embodiment? And so these are such wonderful questions. I think it's a good exercise for all of us. I should do this myself. Like after today is to like take a minute, write down what are the questions you're asking about yourself, the world, the meaning behind the work, and the things that you're creating. So without further ado, I think I would like to bring Chrissy on. Chrissy, you're still muted, but why don't you say hello to me so I can make sure I hear you. Okay, I heard Chrissy. Now I'm going to unmute her. Now say hello to the Coding Train audience.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, and then I'm going to switch over to the screen that I have that has your video. So hold on. So everybody should be sorry. I'm kind of new at this technically with having guests. So apologies for all the awkwardness. As I was trying to explain to Chrissy, I was like, don't worry if everything goes wrong. That's kind of the point of the Coding Train. It all goes wrong and we figure it out together. So hopefully you see Chrissy right now. Hi, Chrissy.
Hi.
I don't know if there's anything you wanted to say about the Tender Foundation. You brought, you shared their work with me. I hadn't heard of them before that I missed or that you think would be important to say. Not to put you on the spot, sorry.
No, I just wanted to say that I've known Jacina now for a couple of years, and just the work that she does with Tender, but even outside of Tender. I mean, she's a really awesome person, and the Tender Foundation really does do a lot of great work here in Atlanta. They did a lot for the protests as well. Like, they are really, really about the mission that they have put, on their website. And, I wanted to bring them in today because they're doing great work, but also it's a nonprofit that is kind of here in my hometown of Atlanta. And I just hope, we find some time and space and love to donate to them and help some mamas.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I know that Atlanta, I mean, everyone is going through a hard time, especially in this country with the pandemic. And I know that Atlanta has it's an epicenter now these days. So I hope that we can give a little support. We went through this. We're still going through it in New York, but we're lucky enough now in Brooklyn that our numbers have come down a little bit. And I know that Atlanta is definitely going through a rough patch. So hopefully we can offer our support to the city and the community, and especially those who don't have access to resources, who have little babies. That's really like, I'm glad to be able to do our small part, my small part in being able to help.
For sure.
Great. So I don't know if you how I don't know what the best way to get started is, but if you're ready, I'll pull up your screen. Shall I do that now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to switch. We're going to see. I got a button here. I'm going to press. We're going to see if this works. So now you should be seeing Chrissy's screen, and I'm just going to kind of like turn it over to you. I'm going to launch Blender on my laptop and try to follow along, and I'll ask questions along the way if there are things that I'm confused about. And I'm also keeping an eye on the chat as well. And thank you to Nick K for your donation to Tender. And I want to let Chrissy be able to have some flow here, so I don't know that I'm going to pause and stop every time somebody donates, but at the end I'll try to say some thank yous again to other people who donate as well. And so if you have questions, you can ask them in the chat. I'll try to keep track of them, but we'll also have a little bit of time towards the end if people want to ask questions to Chrissy about her work or just working with Blender and the like.
Cool. All right. Let's jump in. Okay, so first and foremost, hi everyone. I am super excited to be here. Just a little bit of background on me. I actually, when I was learning to code and when I was getting my background or trying to get my bearings with machine learning, I lived on the coding train. Okay, I was on the coding train like every day watching videos. So it's really cool to be here and to share something maybe new to some of you, maybe not so new, but either way, I think we'll have some fun today. The way that I'm going to kind of outline this video, or the kind of overarching goal here, is that I want to try to get everyone kind of familiar with moving around in 3D space. So if you've never heard of Blender, never opened Blender, saw Blender and thought, smoothies, like you have no clue what it is, this is like the perfect video for here. We're going to walk through kind of the concepts behind moving from 2D to 3D. Then I'm going to show kind of like how to navigate in 3D space. And then at the end, we'll go ahead and hopefully have some time to do a demo of how to model that Mew reference. So like Dan said, if you are interested in following along, there is a link in the description to both Blender and also the Mew reference. Okay, so first and foremost, just a really quick note about Blender. If you haven't heard of it before, I have the description here on my screen. It's a free and open source 3D creation suite, and it supports a bunch of things from modeling, rigging, animation, simulation, just anything 3D you can probably do in Blender. And that's specifically why I picked it today. So we're not going to do any coding today, but it has the capability to link in coding. So if you do hard coding and you want to try like generative code, you can do some of that in Blender. If you've been working in 2D, but you want to move to 3D, if you've been doing static work, you want to try animation, if you want to create some OBJ files to put into P5, Dan has a really great tutorial on that already. So there's a lot of really great things that you can do in Blender. So it's a really great transition tool, which is why I wanted to talk about it today, because it just kind of opens the doors to new explorations, new mediums, more dreaming if there's something new that you want to try.
One question that just came in from the chat that I thought I would ask is, somebody asked if Which version of Blender, or does it matter which version they download? Are you using the latest version?
For today, we're going to be talking about Blender 2.8. I think they just released like an update like 2.83 or something like that, but as long as it's Blender 2.8, we'll be good.
Got it.
Okay, so before I even do anything major, I just want to give a note that for the first part here, while I'm talking about concepts, I'm not going to note every single thing that I'm doing, like functionality, but if there's anything that I don't note, when it's time to model, I'm going to completely backtrack, open Blender again from the very beginning and walk us through every single step. So don't worry if you don't quite know what's happening movement-wise or function-wise in the beginning. It will all be explained later. Okay, so let's talk about first just kind of the concept behind moving from 2D to 3D or just creating 3D work in digital space, period. So the biggest difference, I'm going to actually pull up an example piece. So again, don't freak out when you see this. This looks a lot more complex because I use this for animation. Blender doesn't always look this scary, I promise. But I'm going to use this piece as an example. So the biggest kind of difference, and I'm going to actually show the reference photo as well. The biggest difference between 2D and 3D work, or making 2D and 3D work, is that when you are making 2D work, you are creating the illusion of 3D. Okay, so you're doing things like using your composition, using shadows, using foreground, background to create the illusion of a full picture, because you can only draw in like one or maybe two, I guess, depending on how you how you outline things, perspectives. Okay, so what you're doing is you're creating that picture in that one dimension, and then your brain or the audience's brain is doing the legwork to kind of imagine everything else. So for example, when we're looking at this picture here, we see it's like a person. When we look at the head from the way that I drew it, I mean, hopefully we would imagine that it's like a rounded head. So we look at it and we imagine that there's like a back. Hopefully we imagine that there's like another ear, these fingers that are hidden, we imagine them there because that's what we're used to seeing in real life. So the difference when you're moving into 3D is that these things that are imagined, what our brain usually does the legwork for, we actually have to do the legwork in the 3D space. So I want to show kind of an example of what I mean with this piece here. So this is the 3D version of the picture that you just saw that I did. So what's going to happen usually, or at least what happened to me when I first moved into doing 3D work, is that I'm so used to drawing in that one perspective that when you move into 3D work, there's a tendency to kind of do the same, to work from the front or to work from the back. So usually what will happen is you'll go into Blender, you have your model, you're ready, you're like, this is great, this is going to be good. You go and you completely model the front, and then you expect, or you're used to your brain kind of doing the legwork of completing the rest, but then you turn the model and it's completely flat. And you're like, oh, okay. So like in our heads, we know that there is a third dimension in 3D space, but kind of moving and working with that is what's going to be kind of the most kind of shocking thing when you first move into 3D. So with this model, I kind of got away with it because I only needed the front view. But when you're doing things like making characters, or if you're interested in 3D printing, things where the model has to be 360, you have to keep every single dimension in mind, which sounds really, really intimidating, and it sounds like a lot, but Blender has some really great kind of features to help with this. So I'm going to show just a couple of suggestions. I'm going to open a completely new project here. Okay, so this is what Blender usually looks like when you first start, when you have a new project. As you can see, it starts you off with like this cube here. I'm going to use this cube to do a kind of demonstration of ways that we can set up our viewport here. And our viewport is just the screen that you're seeing. Whatever you're viewing is the viewport. So the first thing that we can do to kind of help us when we're ready to make our first model is use a reference. Okay, so in the same way that references are super useful in 2D, they are your best friend in 3D. And what's cool about Blender is that you don't have to like navigate back and forth. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Mew reference. So, usually when you're like drawing something, you have your drawing here, you have your reference off to the side, or maybe on your computer and you're going back and forth, trying to make sure that everything's right, or maybe you're tracing it. What's cool about Blender is that you can drop your reference right into the viewport. Okay, so I can just take this, I can drag it, and drop it right on in there. And that way when I'm modeling, I can put my model right in front. So I'm just going to grab this.
And also, if anyone just joined, you can find that reference image. If you want to use the same reference image, there's a link to it in the video's description. So if you scroll down, you'll be able to find it.
Yeah. And one thing I want to note about references in for 3D space. So I picked this Mew reference for a reason. One, because it's absolutely adorable, but also because it has 3 different views. So something that might also be new when you're transitioning from 2D to 3D, if you're used to drawing in one perspective, when you move to 3D, again, you have to have a full kind of 360 understanding of your piece. So things that are usually hidden in 2D, you have to make decisions about in 3D. Okay, so for example, if you drew a character that is facing backwards, if you draw them from the back, usually in 2D, you don't have to really imagine what their face looks like, but in 3D you will. So when it comes time to choose a reference, you want to try to look for things like this Mew reference. So something that has, at the bare minimum, like a front reference and a side reference. But if you can find something with, a right reference, a left, top, bottom, as much as you can, the more references that you have when you're doing 3D work, the more comfortable you're going to feel, because you don't have to imagine anything that's not there. Everything will be there for you. So try to look for references like this. If you can't find something that has all 3 of them in one, like let's say you want to make a reference of, you want to make like an elephant or something. You can't find a picture of an elephant from 3 different angles. Just try to find 3 different pictures that you like that are kind of similar, that you can see it from the front and from the side at least. And then if you can find other views from the back or whatever other angle, it's going to help a lot. Okay, so right now, my reference is in here. I kind of have it at a funny angle though, so I'm going to actually delete this. I'm going to back up. And now, so I keep talking about all these different views in Blender, or we talk about how, you can see a piece from the front, you can see a piece from the back. When you first go in Blender, you're probably like, I don't know where I am. Like, am I in the front? Am I in the back? I have no clue. Luckily, Blender has views. So we can, and I'll go through this again when we go to the modeling, but just to show really quick, if you go up here to the View tab and you go to Viewport, it has all of the different views that you can look at. So you have top, you have bottom, you have front, back, right, left, and you can navigate these using your keys. So I'm going to do that with my keyboard. So now I'm in the front. If I press 3, now I'm in the right. We can even jump to opposites using 9. So that way you always know where you are, and it'll show you up here in the top left corner. If you ever feel lost and you click a button, you're like, I don't know where I am anymore, Blender will always show you in the top left here. Okay, so now that I'm in the front view, I'm going to go ahead and drag this Mew reference back in here. Okay, and so usually what I do is that once I put my reference in, I move whatever like base that I'm going to use to model in front. So I'm just going to do that really quick. I'm just going to scale this down. And again, don't worry if you don't know what I'm doing. I will explain all of these keys a little bit later. Okay, so I have this in the front, right? And now you're probably thinking, well, okay, Chrissy, you said don't just model from one view though. Like, we're only in one view. This doesn't help. Blender actually allows us to split screens. So we can actually model from different views all at the same time. So there's 2 ways that we can do that. One manually and one through Blender. Blender will set it up for us. So I'm going to show the manual way. So if you ever want to split your screen so that you can model in different views at once, all you have to do is come to a corner and you'll see the mouse turns into a crosshair. And when you get that crosshair, you just drag. Oh, it's giving me trouble. Oh, there we go. Okay, you just drag and it'll give you another screen. Okay, so now both of these are in front because when you split your screen initially, it's going to split it the exact same way. So whatever view you are in one screen, it's going to duplicate in the other screen. But let's say that I wanted to model in both front and maybe like right view. So what I'll do is I'll come over to this right side here and I'm going to hit 3. Okay, so now I have the front and the right. So when I make a change, so let's say I decide to rotate this, I can see what happens in both views at once, which is really, really useful because as you're modeling and you're getting used to what I call walking around the model, so just making sure that we're using or viewing the model from all angles as we move, is that again, as you make a change in one view, it's going to show how it affects in the other view. So it kind of breaks you out of that one perspective kind of view and mindset. Now, we only have the reference in the front view though, so that doesn't really help us. But we can do the same thing. We can drag. We can drag and drop our reference over in the right view as well. So I'm going to move this. Move this over some. Just going to rearrange my references a little bit right now because as you can see, they're stacked. So I'm just going to move this one back a little bit and put me back in front. Okay. So now I can move my box. I'm going to grab it.
I had a quick question, which is, so I noticed like this, like for example, the pressing the numbers doesn't work for me because I'm just on a laptop without a number pad. And also like I'm using the trackpad. So I'm assuming, are you using a regular mouse or some of the stuff you're doing? Like, is that recommended?
Let me actually show you how to fix that. Thank you for bringing that up because that was something that was like, Chrissy, make sure you note this, but I forgot to note. I'm so sorry. So if you are on a laptop and you're like, I can't move, what's happening? Blender is built for using a mouse and using like the 3-click system, so using the wheel as a click. So if you are on a laptop right now and you want to be able to move without a mouse and just use your trackpad, all you have to do is go to File, go to Edit, and then we're going to scroll down here to Preferences, and then we're going to go down here to the Input tab, and then you just click Emulate Numpad. So this is going to allow you to use the numbers on your keyboard, and then you also click Emulate 3-button mouse, and that'll help you move around. Thank you, Dan, for bringing that up. So again, if you are on a laptop and you want to be able to move without a mouse and you want to be able to use the keys that are already on your keyboard, just go to Edit, Preferences, then we'll go down here to the Input tab, and then we'll click Emulate Numpad, and then we'll also click Emulate 3-button mouse.
And how did you delete the Mew image? That's one thing I couldn't get to work.
Maybe I should. Okay, so I was gonna wait to completely do like.
Oh, sorry. It's fine.
No.
Yeah.
It makes more sense for me to talk about the buttons that I'm clicking while I do this. I'll just go ahead and say all the buttons that I'm using. That way it'll make a little bit more sense. Okay, so in order to delete, what we'll do is you just click, so a regular like left click, and then you hit X. And it'll prompt you here, say okay, delete, and you just click it, and then it's gone. And you can delete anything like that. Okay, so I'm gonna bring this back in really quick. And just a note, if your reference isn't coming in, there can be 2 reasons why that's happening. One reason why it won't come in is if you click on your object, your reference for whatever reason might not want to come in. So you just want to click off of it and then try to drag it in. Also, if it's not coming in, it's very possible that you're in a different mode. So make sure to look up here and make sure it says object mode. So if you want to bring in new objects, anytime you want to bring in a new object, whether it's a reference photo, whether it's another mesh, such as this cube here, you always want to make sure you're in object mode. Okay, so for whatever reason, if your reference isn't coming in, just make sure we're in object. Okay, so again, what I'm going to do is really quickly, I'm just resetting everything to the center where this crosshair is. And to do that, all you have to do is press Option and then G. again, with my square, I'm going to do the same thing, just press Option and G, and that just moved everything down here to the middle. Okay, so again, on the right side here, we are in front view. On the left side, we're in right view. And something else I want to note really quick too is that, as you can see up here, it says right orthographic. Okay, and if I press 5, it's going to say right perspective. So I want everyone to make sure that you're in orthographic mode. Okay, there are 2 different modes in Blender, orthographic and perspective. I don't want to explain that right now because it's very, very confusing. Long story short, you mostly use perspective if you're doing like scene modeling. So for example, if you want to model outer space, you'll probably want to use perspective. But if you're doing like character modeling, anything that's going to use details, you always want to make sure you're in orthographic. Okay, and again, you'll know where you are because Blender will say it in this top left corner here. And let me make this bigger, sorry, so you can see everything. Okay, so again, if you're in perspective, just hit 5 and it'll put you in orthographic mode. Okay, so we have our reference set up in the right side and left side. I'm going to move my cube over. So in order to move it, I'm just going to click it, just going to left click it once, then I'm going to hit G, which is grab. And then what I want to note quickly before I move it is, as you can see up here, this is kind of like your axis that's going to tell you kind of where you are in space or how to make a movement. Okay, so as you can see on this side, if I want to move right, I'm going to move it on the Y. But on this side, if I wanted to move right, I would move it on the X. And the reason for that is because we're in 2 different views. Okay, so again, if you feel lost, you're not sure where you are, first make sure that you check on the top left. And then if you're like, well, I don't really know how to move, then you can check on the top right to try to figure out where to go. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to this left panel because I want to move my box in front of this right view of Mew, or the left view of Mew. He's facing left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click onto the box, so just one left click, and then I'm going to hit G to grab. And then remember, we're on this side, so if we want to move right, we're going to use the Y axis. So I'm going to click, I'm going to hit G, and then I'm going to hit Y so that I can move it left or right. And now I'm just going to move the box right over Mew. And as you can see on this side, it disappeared a little bit. That's only because my references are kind of crosshaired like this. So I'm going to move this reference back, this front reference here, by clicking it. I'm going to hit G. And now this time, if I want to move right, again, we're going to use that Y axis. I'm just going to move it back here. Okay, so now on the right side, when we're in the front view, we have our box in front of the right Mew reference here. And on the left side, when we're modeling in the right, even though I guess technically it should have been the left, but that's okay, we have our box in front of the side reference of Mew. So again, as we make a change in one, so if I come over here and I rotate, and to rotate, you just hit R. So if I rotate on the right, I will see in real time how it affects the front. Okay, so this is really important again because we are working in multiple angles all at once. And we always want to know how kind of what we do in one angle affects the other. And on that note, something I just want to note really quickly is that references in 2D don't always perfectly translate in 3D. So everything here with Mew, looks up to spec from our eye because we are seeing it in separate angles. But sometimes when we try to combine all the references, we'll notice like maybe the arm was like a little bit higher in the front reference than it is in the side reference. And maybe the ears are a little bit more back in the front reference than they are in the side reference. So with references, they are your best friend. You want to love them, you want to cherish them, but you don't want to marry them. You want to stay flexible because as you are manipulating different angles, you're going to notice that things may not line up, and that's okay. You can just use your best judgment to make adjustments from there. Okay, so this is our split. This is usually where I like to keep splits because it could get a little tight in the area, but you can actually split the viewport as many times as you want. So let's say you have 16 different references. If you wanted to split the viewport 16 different times in 16 different ways, you totally could. So again, all you have to do that is come to any corner and just drag up. Okay, and now I can change this one to the back. So now I'll know what's happening in the back. And I can do the same over here. I can just drag it up. And I'll change this one to the left. Okay, so now as I'm making a change in the front, I will now see what's happening. Oh, the bottom one is kind of blocked, but you can see the point that as I move in one, I know what's happening in every single angle. Okay, and now if we want to get rid of these, if you're trying to like grab and you're like, oh no, I keep making a million windows, I've been here before, and I panicked and I completely like closed out a project and started from scratch. So I was like, I don't know how to get rid of all these windows. Don't worry, there's an easy way to do that. All you have to do is come over, just hover over the line where it gives you that two kind of arrows. You'll right click on your trackpad, then you just hit join area. I'm gonna do that again. Just right click, join area, and then you'll click which way you want to join. So you can join up, you can join down, and then again, we're just gonna join all these. I'm gonna bring us back to 2 screens. Now, if you don't want to do all the dragging, or if dragging feels hard, or maybe your trackpad doesn't work all that great, you can also do this. Blender will set things up manually for you. So you can come up here to the View tab. You can come all the way down to Area, and you'll see a couple different options. So we have Toggle Quad View, which will give us the 4 again, which that gave us 4 on one side just because I already had it split. But then if you want to get rid of that, you can come back to Area and just hit Toggle Quad View again, and it'll get rid of it. And there's also options for the horizontal split. We have vertical split. However you want to split it, Blender can automatically do that for you. Now, this is also really useful if you want to start to make a transition into like animation or rigging, or even when you're rendering. I can set, for example, I'm just going to really quickly show you what edit mode looks like. And again, I will explain this later when we're actually modeling. So on the left here now, I'm in edit mode, and I'm going to make this one. Whoops. Sorry, I'm going to make this actually. So this is a rendered view. So I haven't made any changes to the square, so you're not really going to notice the difference. But like if I change the color, for example, which I can do that really quick, just so you can see what I mean. So I'm going to change this color to blue. Okay. So as you can see on our left side, we have the rendered view. So when you start to do things like adding textures or adding colors, none of that is going to show when you're in object mode or when you're in edit mode as you're reworking the mesh. But if you want to see in real time kind of what everything looks like, you'll be able to see it if you have kind of that split. So splitting is really useful for, one, keeping track of how all angles look like at the same time, but it's also useful in your workflow as you're creating things like the render or creating the animation. You're just able to see everything all at once, which is really, really useful. Okay, so I'm going to come back out of that rendered mode. Okay, so I'm going to put us back in right and in front, and I'm going to reset the rotation of this cube by just hitting Option R. So that's just going to clear any rotation that we did. And I think this is a good point to start to move into the demo for Mew. But before we get to demoing, I just want to explain how to move, period, in Blender.
One question came up in the chat, and I'm going to ask it because I was having trouble with it too.
Okay.
I'm having trouble figuring out, I have exactly what you have, but I'm having trouble on the right panel, the front orthographic view, getting the Mew, the reference image to move behind the cube.
Gotcha.
So that should be along the x-axis?
So to do that, so we're in the front here right now, and we want to move this reference back. What I usually do is I'll just kind of like turn to see which way it needs to go. And these lines here correspond to every axis. So this green one is Y, this red one is X. I can't see the Z one right now, but the Z is always blue. So since our Y is the one in behind the reference, we're just going to click the reference, and then we'll hit G, and then we'll hit Y, and that'll allow us to move it back.
Got it.
Cool, great question. Okay, so let's talk about movement before we even start to make our Mew. Okay, so first, since we already talked about kind of the views, just to review, if you want to change what view you are in, you can either come up here to the View tab and go to Viewport, and it'll show you all the options. Or if you are a hotkey person, you can come to memorize them, and you can use your keyboard to just move around. So 1 is front, 3 is right, Command 3 is left, I think Command 1 is back. And then if you don't want to memorize every single one, what I usually do, or what I have done, is I just memorize front and right. So front is 1, right is 3. And then if I want to go to the back, all you have to do is hit 9 to go to the opposite. So when I was in front, it sent me to the back. And now if I hit 9 again, because I'm in the back, it'll take me back to the front. And this will happen again with right view. So if I hit 3 to go to right view, and I want to go to left view, I can just hit 9. That's going to put me in the left. And if I want to go back to the right view, just hit 9 again, and now I'm back in the right. And that way you don't have to memorize every single key. Okay, so that is moving views, but we can also move in between views. Okay, so if you want to look at 3/4, if you want to look at the top, and there's actually top buttons as well. I think 7. There we go. 7 is top. And if you hit 9, it'll put you on the bottom. If you hit 9 again, it'll take you back up top. But again, there's angles in between top and bottom. There's angles in between the front. Like sometimes we need to see some weird angle, maybe like under Mew's tail, or like I don't know if that looks right. You can move just by putting 2 fingers on your trackpad and just moving about. Okay, so this will allow you to rotate. We can go up and down. We can go all around. And then if we feel dizzy and we're like, oh gosh, I'm seeing too much, take me back to front, we'll just hit 1 to go back. But now you're probably like, well, okay, I can rotate, but I can't go left to right. Like, how do I move left to right? So in order to do that, you just hold Shift and use those same 2 fingers, and you'll be able to shift left and right, or up and down, or diagonal, whichever way you want to go. Okay, so we release Shift and just use 2 fingers if we just want to rotate around something. And then we use Shift and 2 fingers if we want to shift to the side, shift up, shift down. Okay, so that is the basics of movement. So the basics then of kind of manipulating, we'll talk about now. So there are multiple modes. If you click this tab here where it says object mode, oh, and that's actually not showing it for some reason. Oh, there we go. Okay. So if you click this tab here, you're going to see there's a bunch of different modes. Don't worry about any of those right now. The only 2 that we're going to worry about today are object mode and edit mode. Okay, so again, right now we're in object mode. We use object mode to add in or take out objects. Okay, so let's say that I wanted to add in a sphere for whatever reason. We can do that either by going to this add panel up here, and then you'll go to mesh, and you can pick any type of mesh that you see there. So add, mesh, and any mesh that you want to add, you can go in there. Or if you are, again, a hotkey person, you can just hit Shift-A. It's going to bring up that same exact screen, and then we can pick something here. So I'm going to pick Suzanne, which is the monkey. I think her origins are from, I want to say Silent Bob, something like that. I don't remember, but she's like Blender's mascot. So I just added in a Suzanne here. But now Suzanne has nothing to do with Mew. So when I want to get rid of Suzanne, all you have to do to get rid of an object is to click it. So you just left click, you hit X, and then delete. Okay, so again, we add with Shift-A, and then we'll pick a mesh. And as you can see, there are other things to add, but again, we'll talk about that another day.
I deleted my
we'll pick
my cube instead of the monkey. So I
Oh
can
no.
just do add cube back in is what I would
Yep,
do.
you can add cube back in, and if you are like, oh, it's no longer in the center, so let's say for whatever reason, if you added it in, it's like over here or something, and you wanted to put it back in the center where that crosshair is, all you have to do is do Option G, and that clears the location and puts it right back in the middle there. Because I'm going to get rid of that one. So now, as you notice, when you add in an object, so I'm going to add Suzanne back in here, it's pretty big. At least it's bigger than our reference. So you're probably like, how do we make this smaller? All you have to do to make things bigger and smaller is you just click, so left click, and then you'll hit S for scale, and then you just drag up or down as big as you want. There's other ways to do this. You can scale precisely by typing numbers in. You can also scale on different axes. So right now, I think I'm scaling on the Z axis. But let's say I wanted to scale on Y. All you have to do is, I'm going to go ahead and click this again. I'm going to hit S, and I'm going to hit Y. And that's going to allow me, and you'll see on the right side, now I'm scaling in the Y instead of the Z axis. You can do that with any axis that you want to do. Okay, and now let's say we have this, and you're like, I hate this. How do I get back? Just with any other program to kind of redo or to go back to what you had previously, all you have to do is hit Command Z or Control Z if you're on a Windows computer. And now we're right back. Okay, and then let's see, what are other some basics? You probably saw me earlier rotating. So again, if you want to rotate, it's going to be the same deal. So you'll just click the object, just regular left click, then you'll hit R to rotate. And then again, you just click and drag. And it's the same deal with scaling. If you want to scale on a particular axis, so let's say I wanted to rotate on the Y, then I'm just going to hit Y, and it's going to switch it. I guess you couldn't really see in that one. Let's say I want to do it on Z, then it then lets me scale it in a different way. And now this is X that I just hit, so now I'm rotating in X. Now I hit Y, and I'm back rotating in Y. Okay, and again, if you're like, I don't want this, how do I go back? You just hit Command C. And also just to note, when you find an angle that is perfect, you're like, this is a perfect rotation. In order to keep it here, all you have to do is left click again. And that'll set it wherever you want it. Okay, so those are kind of the basics of moving your object in object mode. So now let's talk about editing. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this Suzanne head again by clicking X and then delete. And let's go to edit mode. I actually don't model with a cube, but I'm going to show just the basics of editing with a cube, and then I'll show everyone how I usually go about modeling. So in order to get into edit mode, there's two ways that you can do that, of course. So either you can click the object, and then you can hit Tab, and that'll take you into edit mode, and you'll know if you did it right because it'll say up here into edit. Or you can, again, click the object, you can come up here to the tab, and then you can just come down here to edit mode. And again, you'll know if it takes because it'll display it right up here. Okay, now that we're in edit mode, you see that things look a little bit different. You see like the little points here, and the reason why is that Blender is vertex-based. Okay, so the way that we make models is by manipulating vertices. You can also manipulate edges, which are just any lines. You can also manipulate faces, which are just any faces created by connecting the edges and the vertices. But the kind of basis is vertex manipulation. And just in general, the more vertices that you have on a model, usually the more realistic it's going to look. So I usually do low poly art, as you saw in the reel. So I don't use a whole lot of vertices. But if I wanted to make things smoother, if I wanted to make things look more realistic to the material world, I would just add in more vertices. And it's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so let's talk about manipulating these. So in order to do that, there's a couple of different ways that you can grab and move your vertices. Okay, so I'm going to talk about first the ways that we can grab. So one, the simplest way is you can just drag and drop. and you'll see, I guess it's a little bit hard to see on my screen, but you'll see it'll highlight whatever you grab is now going to be this yellowish orange color. Okay, so I'm going to do that again. So to let go of anything that you grab, you just click off. So you see it turn back black. And then if I want to grab it again, I can just drag and drop. Okay. Now there's other ways to grab as well. There's something called box selecting, which honestly looks the exact same, but I'll show you anyway. So if you hit B, it's going to give you this crosshair. You can do the same exact thing. You just drag whatever you want to over whatever you want to grab and drop, and you'll see it highlighted. Okay, and then to release, we'll just left click. And there's one more that you can do, which I actually think is really useful, called circle select. So if you hit C, now we're going to get this circle in the crosshair. And if you drag, it just allows you to kind of grab vertices that are not in the same area. So if I wanted to grab like all of Mew's foot, for example, and there's like a bunch of vertices, I can just drag this circle select all over it. Okay. And then to release it, with circle select, you have to press enter, and then you'll press left click to let it go. Okay, so those are the basics for grabbing, but I want to show you all something, because this is another kind of wall that I hit when I was first modeling, is that I went and I grabbed, I used the cube because it was what was default here. So I was like, yeah, this is great, I'm about to model. I went, I box select here, or I dragged to select. I grabbed this vertice using G, and I moved it, and I was like, yeah, this is great. Everything's going wonderfully. The whole cube is moving. And then I turned it, and I realized, oh, the back is not, it's not moving at all. Okay, so if you want to grab in a way that's going to move your entire 3D object, so I'm going to Control Z or Command Z to get back here. If I want to manipulate all of the vertices on one side, another trick that we can do is we can change this to wireframe mode. So right now we're in solid view. So we see every single face, we see every single edge. But if we click Z, it's going to bring up this wheel, this option wheel. And again, don't worry about these other two here. We're going to worry about just solid and wireframe today. But if we click wireframe, it's going to allow us to, we get this X-ray view of our 3D model. It's going to allow us to see the reference in the back, but it's also going to allow us to grab any vertices that are kind of in the back.
I just have to say, that is so cool.
I know, it's so great.
I didn't realize there's so many like key commands. It's almost like you're learning a whole separate language, because
Yeah.
I mean, it's friendly and intuitive in one sense, in the sense that you're sort of manipulating this 3D physical world, but I imagine it must take a ton of practice to get all of the like key sequences. It's in like, I just keep making mistakes and like undo. Was that your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it took me, I've been, I think, 3D modeling on my own for maybe 2 years now. And I have learned a lot of really cool tricks, but there's still so much to learn. It's a really cool program though, and there's a lot of ways to do certain things. Like Dan and I were kind of talking before the live about how modeling is a lot like code, where there's multiple ways, multiple solutions to get to the same thing. So even as we're moving through this, if you're seeing something kind of interesting that I haven't talked about, or if you just want to try something weird, and of course, I totally recommend that. The more that you experiment, the more you're going to discover, and the more you're going to find like a way that works for you. So definitely feel free to poke around. Don't feel like you have to do exactly what I'm doing. Get lost, make mistakes. I'll make mistakes too. It's going to be great. It's all going to be great. Okay, so we are in wireframe mode now. So again, if you missed that, we started in solid. So to get to wireframe, to be able to see the reference and to be able to see through the model, all you have to do is hit Z, and it's going to bring up this wheel here. And even these have hot commands, so you can hit Z4 to go to wireframe. If you don't want to learn the hotkeys, all you have to do is click wireframe, and that's going to bring us here. And when we're in wireframe, again, the benefit here is that you're able to grab any vertices in the back that you can't see. Okay, so for example, if you remember when we were in solid mode and I grabbed that front vertice, I only grab the front. But now if I drag and grab, so I'm going to hit G to grab, all of the vertices are going to move. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab and click. I'm going to drag, hit G, and I'm going to drag again and hit G. So now if I take this back to solid and I turn, oh, the model's a little bit behind, but you can see that here, let me just move this so you can see it perfectly. Let me grab this whole thing. There you go. Okay, and I'm gonna put this back in solid. And I'm just gonna move this a little bit to the front just so you can, whoops. Grab. Okay, I'm just gonna move it away from the reference a little bit just so you can see it. But as you can see, when we move the front vertice, it moved the back vertice as well. So whatever we did in the front corresponded to the back. So whenever you want to move like a whole side of something, you want to make sure you're in wireframe so that those back vertices that you can't really grab from the front get moved too. I'm gonna move this back just so you don't get lost. Okay, so like I said though, I don't often model with the starting cube. I usually like to start with a plane. So I think now's a good time to get into this Mew reference. So I'm gonna start from the beginning. I think I'm gonna close out Blender, and I'm gonna start us up from the very beginning as if I was going to model this. That way we can walk all the way through, and I will note every single thing that I do.
And should we do that too, do you think? Or like, should I keep mine open? Like right now I have mine with the 2 Mew references and my warped, strange, mangled cube that I've been really enjoying twisting all the vertices. I feel like I have to show it really quickly. I'm going to show it. People can see that I'm showing my screen. You can't see it is the problem. Oh,
it's
you
okay,
know what? Yeah. But now I'm back to your screen.
Perfect. I think do what makes you feel the most comfortable. If you like what you've set up so far, definitely keep it. If you want to just kind of walk through what it feels like from the very beginning, do that too. Whatever feels more comfortable is what I would encourage. Okay, so I'm going to X out of Blender now. I'm not going to save this. I don't need this. Okay, so I'm back on my desktop. I am pulling Blender back up. Okay, so this is what Blender looks like when you open it. Any recent files that you have will show up here, so you can just jump straight into them. If you want to do a new file, you can just go ahead and over here and click General. If you don't want to click anything, you're just like, I want this box out of my way, you can just left click off it and it's going to put you in that starting screen as well. Okay, so again, when you open Blender, it's always going to start you off with a cube, but then you probably notice there's 2 other things here. So this here is a light, and this here is a camera. I want to explain this, but I also don't want to get too deep into this because you use these for rendering, and we're probably not going to get to that step just yet. But just in the same way that you kind of have to set up your composition in 2D, how you have to set up your light to create certain shadows, you have to do the same thing in 3D, and you use the camera and you use the light to do that. But today we're not going to use that, so I'm just going to get rid of these things. So again, to do that, we're going to just left click on the camera. I'm going to hit X, and then we're going to delete it. And we're going to do the same with the light by left clicking. I'm going to hit X. We're going to delete it. And like I said, I don't use the cube either to start. Some people do. Some people use the cube to start. Some people use the sphere to start. Some people use a single vertex to start. You can literally do whatever feels most natural, whatever shape feels most natural, and also what feels most natural to your model. So for example, if you're modeling like a snowman, you might want to start with a sphere. But my base is that I usually start with a plane. So I'm going to delete this cube as well by left clicking and hitting X and deleting. Okay, now before we even pull the plane in, we just want to make sure we are in the right perspective. So remember, when you're doing character modeling, anything that you need detail, honestly, most models, I would say probably, at least in the beginning, you're probably going to want to use orthographic mode only. So to make sure that we're in orthographic, we're just going to hit 5. Okay, and we're going to know that we're in orthographic because it's going to say it up here in the left. Okay, so now I'm going to hit 1 to put myself in front view, and we're going to bring the Mew model in, or the Mew reference, I'm sorry. So to do that, all we're going to do is grab the Mew reference and drop it right in. And another navigation thing that I forgot to mention is that if you want to zoom in and zoom out, all you have to do is press the plus icon on your keyboard to go in, and the minus icon to go out. Okay, so plus and minus. And something else I forgot to mention is that in the same way that you can manipulate your objects, you can also manipulate your references. So as you notice, when I first dropped it in, the reference was pretty small. So I reconciled that just by zooming in. But if you're like, I want the reference to be bigger, you can just click the reference by a usual left click. You can hit scale the same way that you would with a model. You can just drag it big or as small as you want. Okay, so we have our reference set up in our front view. Now we want to at least have one other view. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I often set up my split screen, and I will set it up in front view and right view. And then what I usually do is I end up keeping one in a view, and then my other view kind of just becomes my whatever view I'm in. Like I just move around a lot. But I'm going to set it up in the way that what we've been talking about. And if you feel like, you know, the 2 split isn't what you want, you can add in another split. You can use just the one view. So again, whatever feels the most natural for you is definitely the way you should go about modeling. There's no like right or wrong here. All right, so again, if we want to create that split, we can either go to, we can go to view, we can come down to area, and we can click horizontal split or vertical split or quad view, whichever one that you really liked. Or if you want to do it yourself, again, you just come up to a corner until you get that crosshair icon, just left click and drag. All right, so now we have our split here, and let me make this full screen again. Okay, so I'm gonna make my right side front view again, which is already in front view. And if you're not in front view yet and you wanna get there, you just hit 1. And then I'm gonna make my left side right view by hitting 3. Okay, now as you notice, once we hit that right view, we can't see the reference anymore, but we want to be able to see the reference, so I'm just going to drag another one in there again. And in order to do this drag, again, you want to make sure that you aren't like grabbing this reference or grabbing anything, so just make sure first that you just click off, so just a regular left click off of any object, and we just drag this Mew reference right on in here. And now again, this is like floating in a random spot, so if we want it kind of in the middle where the crosshair is, we're just going to left click it, we're going to hit option, and we're going to hit G. That's just going to clear the location. And I'm going to do the same thing with the one over here on the right. So I'm just going to click it, and I'm going to hit option, and then I'm going to hit G, and that puts it in the back. Now, if we remember from when we had already split things, like they're kind of just sitting on top of each other, which can create a little bit of like cluster when you do rotate out of a view. So if we want to move a reference back, I usually move the front reference back. So we're just going to click. So this is the front reference here. Just click it. And then as you can see, once I turn it, the way that I'm going to want to move is on this y-axis, so I can move it backwards. So I'm just going to hit G to grab, and then I'm going to hit Y, and then I'll just pull it on back. That way they're not, oops, I'm like hitting my zoom screen here. It's not letting me move all the way back. Okay, so I'm going to hit G, and I'm going to hit Y. Okay, and I'm going to hit 1 to put myself back in. So you can see on this left screen here that this is the front reference, so they're not like crosshair on each other. Okay, so let's put in our object.
I got all of that, by the way. I just want to say.
Yes! You're doing great. This is awesome. Okay, so I'm going to show you the way that I usually model as, like I said, I usually use the plane instead of a cube. I usually don't like to start, even though it sounds, I guess, kind of backwards, I don't like to start with a 3D object in Blender, even though we're modeling in 3D, because of the fact that like I kind of like to get, there's just less vertices to worry about is the short answer. To keep yourself kind of like free from like manipulating something in the back that you didn't really intend to. I like to use the plane because it is just that one. So if I'm moving one in the front, I know that I'm not accidentally kind of messing up something in the back, which is why I use planes. But again, if you like the cube that you already started, you can stick with the cube. You can just start with one single vertice. You can start with a sphere, whatever. You can even start with Suzanne. Whatever feels comfortable for you, go ahead and start with that. So in order to get our object in that we want to start modeling with, first we want to make sure we're in object mode. So if you're in edit mode right now, you can either come up to this tab and click object mode, or you can hit the tab button. It'll put you back in object. Okay, and once we're in object mode, we're going to go ahead and add in our mesh by pressing Shift A. So that's how we add something. And then I'm going to choose the plane. Okay, now our plane got set kind of flat on the ground. So I'm going to want to turn it so that it is kind of facing the same way that Mew is facing in the front here. So I'm going to rotate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit R because it's already grabbed, and we know that because it's yellow. So I'm going to hit rotate. And I always rotate in the wrong direction, so forgive me if I do this wrong, but we'll figure it out. All I'm going to do is hit Z, because I think we're rotating on the Z, and then hit 90. Okay, that was the wrong way. So I'm going to reset that. I'm going to hit R, and then I'm going to hit X, and then I'm going to hit 90. There we go. And that's going to bring us forward. Okay, so again, to get it to flip in the same way that Mew is facing, we'll just hit R to rotate, and then we'll hit X because we want to rotate it on the X. And then I'm just going to type 90, and that's going to bring it 90 degrees, a 90-degree rotation, and then you just hit enter. Okay. Now, this is huge, completely covering Mew. So we want to be able to see Mew. So again, we're going to go to wire mode by hitting Z, and then we're going to go to wireframe. So now we can see precious Mew in the back. And then we are going to scale down this plane because it's way too big for Mew right now. So we're just going to hit S to scale, and we're just going to bring it down. And I'm going to get a little bit closer. So again, if you need to zoom in and out, you can zoom in with the plus button. You can zoom back out with the minus button. All right, now what I usually do when it comes to modeling, I usually start with the body of anything. I do a lot of character models. I do a lot of like human models. So I'll usually try to start with the body, and then I'll move to maybe like the head, and then I usually worry about limbs later. So we're going to start with the body here. I usually start with the very base of the body, and then I work up, but you can start at the neck and work down, whatever feels more comfortable. But for this, just for the sake of demoing something, I'm going to start at the bottom. So I'm going to...
Sorry to interrupt you. How do you get to wireframe again? I thought I got stuck there.
You're fine. So to get to wireframe, you just hit Z, and it's going to bring that wheel.
Got it.
All right. So we are going to start at the base of Mew. So to do that, with our plane already selected, and again, we know it's selected because it is that orangey color, we're just going to hit G to grab. And now if you want to grab with precision, you can hit G and then Z, and that's going to slide it like perfectly kind of up and down. If you don't care for it being perfect, you can just hit G and just like place it freely wherever you want. I know it's a little bit hard to see because Mew is also white, but I'm just going to place it. I'm going to place it right about here, I'm thinking. And I might change that, but we'll place it here. Okay, now the way that I go about figuring out where to create new vertices is that I just kind of follow the curves of the body. So if things start to curve, I add new vertices. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So first, I'm actually going to set this at the very base of Mew. I'm not going to include Mew's legs in there. And before we even can manipulate vertices, we have to move into edit mode. Okay, so with your plane selected, you're going to hit tab, and that puts us into edit mode. Now, if you hit tab and nothing happened, a reason why is because it may not have the plane selected. So if I hit tab right now, I'm hitting it, nothing's happening. It's because the plane isn't selected. So you have to have an object selected so that Blender knows what you're trying to edit. Okay, so we're gonna hit the plane, and then we're gonna hit tab, and that puts us into edit mode. And you'll know you're in edit mode, again, because you'll see it up here, but also all of the kind of vertices will become more visible in the object. All right, so the way that I do this, again, is I just follow the curves of the body, and I manipulate the vertices that way. So I'm gonna start with this bottom one here. I'm just gonna drag and drop, and I'm gonna hit G, and I'm just gonna move it right about here. And I'm going to click off, and I'm going to do the same over here. I'm just going to move this maybe like right here. I'm just going to adjust this one too. It's kind of like right at the base. Okay, and then I'm going to grab this top one, and I'm going to move it. I'm going to go pretty wide on this one, because why not? Then I'm just going to drop it, and I'm going to drag, and I'm going to grab with G, and then I'm going to drop it. Okay, so this is our very, very bottom. Now we want to add more vertices. And again, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, but the way that I do it is through extruding. So I'll show you what that looks like. The way that we're going to extrude is by first, we're going to grab these top two vertices. And then we're just going to hit E, and that's what's going to allow us to extrude up. Well, you can really extrude any way that you want, but we're going to go up because we are working on Mew's body upwards. So then we're just going to click to drop it. I'm going to click again just to make sure I'm not holding on to any vertices. Then I'm going to do the same thing that I just did. I'm just going to grab this left one. I'm going to hit G to grab. And I'm going to move it to align it with Mew's body. And click off. And I'm going to drag over this one, hit G to grab. I'm going to move this vertice. And then we're going to do the same thing. So we're just going to drag, we're going to hit E to extrude, and we're going to go on up and click off to place it. Click again to make sure you're not holding any vertices. You're going to drag, drop, hit G, and set this one to right about here maybe. And do this again, G to grab, and move. Okay, we're just going to repeat the same process over and over until we get up to X. So I'm going to set this one maybe like right about here, kind of where that curve starts to like taper another way. Again, I'm going to drag, grab, place, drag, grab, place. Do this again. E to extrude. Put this right about here. Why not? Drag, grab, place. Drag, grab, place. All right, and we're going to do that again, probably like 2 more times. So I hit E to extrude. I'm going to put it right about here. I'm going to drag, grab, place, drag, grab, place, and do it one more time. So extrude maybe right about here. And then drag, grab, place, drag, grab, place. Okay, so I'm just going to fix that vertex really quick. Okay, so I'm going to bring us back into solid mode just so you can see what this looks like. So I'm going to hit Z. I'm going to go over here to solid, just so you can see it filled in. And then if I turn, whoops, sorry, I know that this looks like a lot, just because I'm going to actually, really quickly, I'm going to move this one. I'm going to move our left kind of reference back so that it doesn't get in the way when we do turn. So I'm going to tab really quickly back to edit mode. I'm going to grab our left reference here, and I'm just going to rotate a little bit to see which axis I want to move it back on. So I want to move it back on this red axis here. So that is the X. So I'm just going to hit G to grab, and I'm going to hit X. I'm just move it out the way of this front view. So it was about right here, kind of blocking Mew. So I'm just going to move it back. That way it doesn't get in our way. All right, I'm going to put us back in that right view. And it's a little bit hard to see right now, but our model is still in front of that right. Whoops. Actually, sorry. I just realized we didn't do that. But that's okay. We'll come back. We're ready to move it because I don't want us to do too much at once. So right now, I'm going to put us back in our front and our right. We're going to hit Tab to go back to edit. Whoops. First, we're going to click the model so it knows what we're editing. Then we're going to hit Tab to go back to edit. And I just wanted to rotate it just so you can see what this is looking like so far. So it looks like nothing, kind of. We have our front body outline, but right now it's just that flat plane because that's what I picked because I didn't want the back vertices to kind of get away. But now we do want Mew's body to be 3D. I mean, that's why we are in 3D, why we are in Blender today. So I'm going to show you how to make it then 3D. So what we're going to do, I'm going to tab back just so we're in front view and we don't have to look at too much stuff all at once. I'm going to grab all of these vertices, just like this. And I'm going to kind of turn it a little just because I want you to be able to see this. Oh, actually, I can do it in right view. See, that's why we split our view so we can see these things. So I'm going to put this back in front just so you can see it in real time. So I'm going to grab all these vertices. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit E to extrude. And now when we're in our right side, so I want you to look at this right panel here. If we want to move to the right, we have to use the Y axis. Okay, so on this extrude, I'm going to extrude on the Y. So I'm going to hit E, and then I'm going to hit Y, and it's just going to bring all of these vertices back. So now we have a bit of a body. Now it's very square, but that's okay. Now, kind of a cheat code that I want to show everyone that is going to help when you're modeling anything bilateral. So anything like humans, animals, anything that's kind of mirrored from one side to the other. There's actually a mirror, it's called a modifier in Blender that will help you kind of model the same thing on each side, which is really useful for body stuff. Really useful, really, again, for anything that's bilateral so that you don't have to make changes on both sides. As you change one side, it'll make a change on another side. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So again, we have our body here. What we are going to do is I'm going to click off that. I'm going to come over here to our tools panel, which I know we haven't talked about yet. There's a lot of really useful tools here, but I don't want to confuse everyone. So today we're only going to really focus on this tool right here called a loop cut. Okay, and all that a loop cut does is that it cuts something all the way around. Okay, so we're gonna, and I'll show you what that looks like. We're gonna click loop cut, and we're gonna go over our model here, and you'll see this line form. And there's different ways that we can cut it. If I want to cut it around vertically, I can do that, or horizontally, I can do that. If I want to cut it vertically, I'll set it here. And we're gonna cut it vertically so that we can mirror one side on the other. Okay, so to do that, to lay your loop cut, all you have to do is left click. Now let's say I don't want it right in the middle for whatever reason. You can drag it as well. I don't want that. I do want it right in the middle, so I'm just going to click, left click right where it is, and then hit, oops, and then we'll just go back to your selection. Okay, so now we should have a cut going right down the middle of Mew's body. Okay, so what we're going to do now is going to hit Z to go back into wireframe. And then we are going to drag everything on the left side of Mew's body, all of those vertices, but not the middle ones. You want to leave the middle ones alone. You just want to grab all the vertices on the left side. And we're going to hit X. And it's going to bring up our delete panel. And we're just going to hit vertices. Okay, so that left side should be gone now, which probably is like, oh my gosh, what's happening? I'm scared. Don't worry. It's going to be great. So
yes, it's gone.
We're now going to grab the right side of Mew's body. Make sure you're in wireframe so that you can grab everything, including those back vertices. We're going to come to this panel over here on the right side. We're going to hit this wrench looking thing, which is the modifier tab. And then, and let me move my Zoom screen a little bit, 'cause it's a little bit in the way, so can't see. We're going to go to Add Modifier. It's going to bring up a million different things that you can do in Blender. This is one of the areas where you should definitely explore. There's some really, really cool things that you can do. But for right now, all we need is the mirror modifier, which is going to be under Generate. So come down here, and we hit Mirror, and bam. Now Mew's body is back on the other side. So as I change one thing, so if I take this one and I move it, it's going to happen on the other side as well. Okay, so as we're trying to get that body perfect, now we only have to worry about one side, and the other side, the mirror modifier will do the rest of the legwork.
So I'm just curious, so that wasn't entirely necessary because we had vertices for the other side, but because we were doing it manually, it wasn't necessarily like perfectly symmetrical. So
Yeah.
now by like deleting it, mirroring it, it's kind of like a cleanup step.
Yeah, it's definitely not necessary. It's just if you want to keep things perfect, which I don't always do this. Honestly, I will usually go in and adjust every single vertice one by hand, which is totally not necessary. So if you want to just have like a quicker way to do that, if you wanted to just model half of it, this is the mirror modifier is a really great way to make sure you don't have to do as much work as you would if you do it manually. Okay, so now that we have our mirror modifier on there, I just want to note that once you delete that, I can't actually manipulate the left side on my own now. Just whatever happens on the right side is what's going to get kind of moved to the left side. Okay, so just keep that in mind that if you're like, I can't grab anything on the left side, it's because it's being mirrored. So we can only manipulate things on the right side now. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start to, I think, make this body a little bit more realistic. Now, what I also want to keep in mind or just note when it comes to 3D work is that when you are rendering things, you don't want to do every single detail in one view, because once you move to another view, it's going to get kind of manipulated and changed. So you want to capture the shapes of things in these kind of initial stages. So just like how we captured the shape of the body, but I don't want to go in and like add the arms and then like make sure his body is completely like perfect, because once I start to model from like the back or model on the side, that's going to get changed a lot. So make sure you're capturing the shape, but don't do every single detail just yet, because it's going to get kind of like manipulated kind of later on. Okay, so right now we have like this really square kind of thing going on. It's not really that cute. And Mew, as we know, is like more rounded. So we're going to do first, I'm going to take us back into solid mode by hitting Z and then go into solid just so we can see. And like I said earlier, the way to get things more realistic, the way to get things rounder is by adding in more vertices. So that's what I'm going to do now with another loop cut. So I'm going to go over here to the panel. I'm going to click loop cut. And I'm thinking I'm going to cut it in the middle here. And then I'm just going to click to land it. And then I'm going to go back here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this a little bit. So I'm going to hit S. Oops. And I'm going to scale it on the actually, I don't like how that's happening. I'm going to, let's see. Okay, so instead of doing that, I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to actually take this front part. I'm just going to kind of like shift it a little bit to the front so that it is like creating a more rounder effect. So to do that, I'm just going to click these vertices here. Now, what you're going to notice is that as you click vertices, you're going to like lose the other one. So if you want to grab multiple, you'll left click and then hold down shift. So I'm just going to grab this front line here, I think. And then I'm thinking, I'm just going to hit grab. I'm just going to kind of like move it in a bit. Oops. Sorry, my computer is freezing. Sorry. My computer's a little bit old. And actually, I'm going to go back to wireframe just so I can see. I just want to make sure I'm not grabbing anything that I don't need to grab. Okay, so that looks fine. I'm gonna go back to solid. And I'm just gonna have like an extra point here for some reason. So let's go to wireframe and grab. I'm just gonna circle select these. And hopefully I'm gonna unselect these by grabbing. Oh boy.
How did you circle select again? What's the?
Just look like you just hit C.
C. Okay, got it.
And you can make it bigger or smaller by two finger just dragging up and down. So if I want to make this pretty small. Oh, okay, and then I'm gonna drag here, and then you hit enter to get rid of the crosshair. But like I don't want these, so I'm gonna click. Okay, and let's see if that'll. There we go. Okay, so I'm just kind of like pulling it in just a little to get like that initial like roundness. It's not round yet because we're gonna have to add more vertices, but I'm just kind of pulling it in just to have it be a little less square. You know, it's very, very square right now, and that's not really what we want. So I'm gonna do the same on this side. I'm just holding shift to grab multiple vertices at once. I'm just gonna grab all these. And then again, I'm just gonna hit grab. I'm gonna just push it in a little bit. So we have just like some roundness. Again, it's not gonna be perfect in the beginning, but that's okay. We don't need it to be perfect in the beginning. We just wanna try to begin to capture the shape. Now, something I wanna note that you might be seeing as you move vertices because of the mirror modifier, you're gonna start to get gaps kind of here in the kind of center where it was split. Don't worry about that though. We can merge them back together in the end. So if you're noticing like splits, it's not a mistake. It's just kind of like an effect of the mirror modifier. Okay, so it's looking a little funky right now, but again, that's okay. We don't want to add in all the details and have it be super perfect just yet, because we need to add in like the head, we need to add in the feet, and that's gonna require like us to keep it basic so that when we attach things, things don't get too funky. Okay, so what I wanna do is first, I just noticed that over here on our right side, our model isn't aligned on the right, so let's just first move that really quick. Okay, so we can actually move it in edit mode. We don't have to go back to object to move it. I'm just gonna go to wireframe just to make sure that I'm grabbing all of it. And then I'm gonna hit G, and then I'm gonna hit Y, and then I'm just gonna move it in front. Again, it's not perfect right now. We're probably gonna have to rotate it because Mew's body's out of rotate. We're gonna have to like remanipulate stuff, but that's okay. We just wanna know where we're at right now. So before I do any more kind of like body work, again, I don't like to get too detailed in the beginning because we have to attach other things. So I want us to move to the head. So to do that, there's multiple ways we can do this, but for me, in order to stay kind of like clean or to keep my viewport clean, I'll usually kind of hide objects, and I like to model separately. You can model different parts all together. So if I wanted to take this top part and like grab these faces, so I can do a face select, I can grab these, and then I can like extrude, and I can start to do the neck of the head. I don't like to do that because it can get really finicky in there, and it never really goes super smooth for me when I do that. So instead, I like to create a whole new object. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit tab to go back into object mode because we want to add a new object. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the body. So to do that, up here in the top right corner, you'll see scene collection, and that has everything that we've put in our scene listed, and you can use these little eyes to show or to hide them. So the plane here, or whatever shape you use, if you use a sphere, it'll say sphere. If you use a cube, it'll say cube, is going to be our body. And we can, if you want to rename it just so you can keep track, you can double click it. And just go ahead and name it body or whatever you want to name it. And then I'm going to go ahead and just hide it. That way we don't have to worry about it as we do our head. Okay, so to do our head, we're going to do kind of the same exact thing that we did for the body. So we're just going to start by hitting Shift A to add in whatever shape you want to use to make the head. I'm going to use a plane again, just because it's what I like. I'm just going to put that plane in there, but again, it puts it flat. So when we want to turn it, we're just going to hit R to rotate. We're going to hit X, and then we're going to hit 90, and then we're going to hit Enter. Okay, and then we'll hit Z if you want to see it wireframe, and then we can hit S to go ahead and scale it down. And I'm going to place it. I'm going to hit G, and I'm just going to place it just kind of arbitrarily in front of him. Now, before I start moving, Dan, I noticed we're at 12:40. And we're not super far in the model, but I just want to check to see how we're feeling time-wise, how much further. I don't know.
I think so. I mean, I don't have a super strong opinion. I'm happy to go for longer. The audience seems to be enjoying this. I think maybe, though, it might be good. What we could try to do is just get like a basic version of the head, which is kind of similar to what you did with the body. We can move quickly through that.
Okay.
And then I think the most important thing is for people then to learn how to like save and even like share it in a way, because then what I would love if for people watching, I'm going to do this myself, if you work on your Mew or whatever model you're making throughout the day or the weekend, maybe there's a way we can just share it with each other on social media. I mean, that could just be a screenshot, but even if there's a way to like export directly from Blender, like something. Sure. I wonder if there's a way, I know we're not covering animation, but is there a way to like make, like really quickly export just like your model spinning around video? But that's like a complicated thing.
Yes, I mean, there's definitely a way to do it. As far as is it simple?
Yeah. Well, maybe just an image of the model.
Yeah, I can definitely show how to, because I've already completed a Mew, so I can pull that up to show how to.
Right. We can look at that, and then also like even if just export as to like OBJ or whatever the what file format is, because one of the things that I would love to do next time I live stream is try to import it into processing or P5 and see how that goes.
Right, for sure. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's do that. And I definitely want to make sure that we have time for like questions.
Right. Right.
I'm sure there are questions.
Yeah, so let's move towards wrapping up. We can add the head, and then we will have like a Mewtwo with just like body and head. And the exercise for the viewer is try to add the feet, and I guess the tail is like a really high degree of difficulty, but trying to add that would be cool.
The tail, this was actually the first time I ever modeled a tail, and I actually really enjoyed doing the tail. The thing that gave me the most trouble is like actually his little arms. Like they're just so small.
Oh, right.
But
an armless Mew is okay.
I think so too, honestly. Okay, so let's get the head. So again, we're gonna do the head the same exact way that we did the body. So we're gonna start just by grabbing it with G. We're gonna move it to the base here. And then we're gonna hit tab to go into edit mode. And then we're just gonna start manipulating these vertices. All right, so we're gonna drag and grab with G, move it. I'm gonna put it, I wanna make sure I capture the nose. So I'm gonna put it right about here. Just gonna drag, grab, drag, and I'll put it right about here for now. Drag, grab, and then we'll take these top two and we're going to extrude with E. Okay, and then we're going to drag and grab. I might actually lower this. I might adjust this later, but that's okay. This is good for now. G to grab again. And then we are going to drag again and then hit E to extrude. G to grab. G to grab. And what I want to know, so Mew has ears and eyes, as we can see, but these are things that we want to add after we kind of get the base of the head. So as you're extruding up and trying to capture, Mew's shape, I'm gonna actually move these down. Don't worry about the eyes and don't worry about the ears just yet. We'll add those in a little bit later. Just gonna move these down. Just wanna capture more of his curves. All right, we're gonna do the same thing. Go ahead and hit E. I'm gonna do it like right at the base of the ear there, I think. G to grab, G to grab, do this again, and right about there, G to grab, G to grab. I'll probably do this like 2 more times. We're gonna hit E to extrude again, G to grab, G to grab, extrude one more time, and then G to grab, place it right about there, and G to grab, right about there. Okay, so if we go to solid view, this is what it looks like. So it captures the head pretty well. I mean, there are some gaps kind of down here that we can fix later on when we do more detailing, or if you want to add it in now, you can. It's not something you really have to worry about right now. We just kind of have that basic geometry of the head. And what we're going to do is we are going to extrude it. Okay, so we are going to grab all of the vertices here. And I just noticed I keep accidentally moving it on the right. So don't be like me. Like I said, I tend to kind of focus on one viewport. But if you want to make sure that you are using both viewports, you just want to make sure that this model is in front here. You don't necessarily need it just yet because we're not modeling. We're not kind of like getting the details of his side profile yet. But if you want to move this right in front, we'll go over here and we'll hit G, and then we'll hit Y, just to like move the head back. Actually, I'm gonna move it like right about here, so that when I extrude it back, I can see how long I want his head to be. Okay, so we have all our vertices selected. We're just gonna hit E, and now again, we're gonna wanna extrude to the right. So if we're in this left panel, to go right, if we look up at a little compass here, we're gonna use the Y axis. Okay, so we're gonna hit E to extrude, then gonna hit Y, and then we're just gonna bring that bad boy all the way back to maybe right about here, because his head is a little long. And then we'll just hit left click just to set it. Okay, so if we turn, as you can see, we have his long mushroom looking head right now, which is great. And again, the key to making things more realistic is to add more vertices. Just a standard practice, I like to loop cut a couple of times. On the body, I just did one, just so I could show you. But with this head, I think I'm going to loop cut it a couple of times. So I'm going to come back into front view here. I'm going to go over to our panel here, go back to loop cut. Now, when you think about your face, it's like this rounded thing, right? So there's like a cut, like if I cut right down here, that will get like the mirroring for both my eyes. But I also want to capture like, this rounded part here and this rounded part here. And that's kind of what I think about when I'm doing like a body or a head. I'm trying to figure out how to cut it. I'm trying to think of like how round I want it to be. So because I want to capture the full roundness of his head, I think I'm going to loop cut it maybe 3 times. We'll see. So I'm going to hit this loop cut button, and I'm going to click right down the middle. And then I want to loop cut it. I'm going to loop cut it again. Why not? And then I'm going to loop cut it again over on the right side. And then I also, so remember, we're not just modeling in one view, right? We want to make sure that it's looking good on every angle. So I'm also, just so we can see it solid, I'm going to bring it back to solid mode. I'm going to loop cut it at least once here. I'm probably going to end up cutting it more, but just for now, I'm just going to loop cut it here. And I'm just going to go back to my mouse. Now you have the option again of doing the mirror modifier if you want to make sure that your head is like completely symmetrical on both sides. If you want to do the mirror modifier, again, all you have to do is hit Z to go to wireframe. You're just going to pick whichever side. that you want to get rid of. So if you want to get rid of the left side, you'll grab all of the vertices on the left. Just make sure you don't grab that middle kind of partition. And then you'll just delete it by pressing X and then vertices. And then to add in the mirror, we're going to grab everything on the right. And then we're going to go to our panel here. We'll go back to this wrench looking thing, which is the modifier tab. We'll go to add modifier, and then we'll hit mirror. And now it's on both sides. And now again, you might have some splitting going on. Don't worry about it. If you don't like the splitting or if it's making you nervous, you also have the option of just not using the mirror modifier, which is totally fine. And I guess I'll show that here with the head, just so we can get an idea of like what it's like to not use the mirror modifier. I mean, it's really just more kind of manually manipulation. So, okay, so from here, we have our head. Again, it's looking very boxy. So I'm gonna actually come to our right panel now, so I can start to move things to match the shape of Mew's head. So on our left side, I'm gonna hit Z, I'm gonna hit wireframe, so I can see where all the points are. Okay, and again, I just wanna start to kind of match things really to the shape of his head. Okay, so I'm gonna start by dragging and selecting. And again, you wanna make sure you're in wireframe, because if you're in solid and you grab something, it's only gonna grab the very front one. So whatever's happening on one side is not gonna happen on the other side. So make sure you're in wireframe by hitting Z and then wireframe. And then we're just gonna start to drag some things. Well, we're just gonna figure it out. All right, so we're gonna drag this. We're gonna drag and drop and then hit G to just kind of move. I'm gonna take things a little bit slow because there are multiple vertices and it's really easy to like kind of tangle vertices, and I don't wanna do that. So I'm just gonna start by getting these to kind of go where I'm thinking I want them to go. And now, mind you, this might look a little bit different to what you're seeing if you decided to keep the mirror modifier, but it's the same kind of concept. You're just kind of lining up where you think all of the kind of vertices should go for this side of the head. I'm just gonna grab it, drop it, grab this, move it up a little. I think I'm actually gonna shift all these forward just a little bit. And then I'm thinking, move this one up. And again, you don't have to do this the exact way that I'm doing it. If you're looking and you're like, Chrissy, this vertice should obviously go over here, please definitely do that. You wanna do it in a way that feels comfortable and feels like whatever makes sense kind of to you. So I'm gonna put this one here. I'm gonna quickly move these up so that I don't tangle this one, because I want this one to kind of come over here, but it's still a little low. So I'm gonna move all of these up again. And I'm just gonna bring this one in here. I'm gonna bring this one kind of up here. I'm gonna take these and bring them in, closer to the head. And then let's see, let's take this one down. Now remember, we don't have ears yet, and the ears are kind of blocking part of the head. So you just want to kind of assume where his like headlines, I guess, would fall. So I'm going to take this one and put it here. I'm going to take this one and just kind of put it, whoops, didn't mean to grab all those. I just want to grab this one, kind of place it here. I'm going to bring this one just a little bit back. I'm going to bring this one here. I'm going to bring this one maybe like right about there. We can make some adjustments. And now again, as you can see, like there's like gaps that the vertices can't quite cover because we don't yet have enough. But that is also something that we can kind of fix later on. Okay, so we just moved things around. You may have seen things kind of happen in the front view, but I'm going to change this to solid just so you can see it. So it's looking pretty good. It looks like his head. I'm going to view, but as you can see, it's pretty wide. So we're going to have to fix that, but that's okay. But we're starting to kind of capture what his head, like the shape of the head from both the front. So if we take this back to solid, you see it's still capturing what it looks like in the front. And then if we change this one to wireframe as well, it's all kind of captured on the side as well. Of course, we're having some proportion issues, but that's okay, because right now we're just trying to get shape. All right, now from here, I want to have it to where we have something that at least looks decent before we go. So let's do like a little bit of detail work on the head. Again, I usually don't try to do too much, because in order to connect the head and the body, you kind of want you don't want the mesh to be too unbalanced when it comes to vertices. So if I have like 100 vertices on the head, but then I only have like 20 vertices on the body, connecting it might get like a little bit funky. But for the sake of just like getting us familiar with modeling and like kind of pushing things around to make it look like what we're trying to model, I'm going to go ahead and do just a little bit of detail work to get this head looking a little bit better. Okay, so from here, this is definitely an area where I encourage you to go off the rails, move things as you feel they should be moved. I'm going to make adjustments, and I'll try to talk through what I'm doing, but honestly, it's going to look a little bit sporadic, because that's kind of the way that I model. I just kind of like try things and then see how it looks, delete it if it doesn't look so good, try other things. But this is definitely the area where you just kind of want to freeform and like experiment and see what's working and kind of not working. Okay, so for me, as I'm looking at this head, it's just looking like, it just looks very alien. It's looking kind of wide. It's not really like as round as I would want it to be. So what I'm thinking is, now mind you, I don't have the mirror modifier on, so I have to keep in mind that whatever I do on one side, I'm going to have to do on the left side. If you decide to keep the mirror modifier, you're a little bit in luck, because as you adjust one side, it's just going to automatically do that for you. So let's see. Again, I'm looking at this head. It's looking a little funky, and it's looking a little flat. So I think first I'm going to try to kind of round out the front. Now, something I haven't shown just yet is that so far we've been manipulating vertices, and I think I talked about this just for a second, but if you want to manipulate whole faces or edges, you have the option to do that as well. So if you come up here and you look right next to our edit tab, we have these 3 different boxes here. And this tells us which kind of editing mode or selecting mode that we are in. So far we've been in vertex select. So if you have this selected, you're going to see all the vertex present. But if we want to manipulate some edges, we can hit edge select, and now it's going to show us all the edges. And let's say we want to manipulate a whole face, then we'll click face select. And it's also going to then allow us to click faces. Okay, so edges will let us just click the edge, and then vertices is going to show you to click those vertices. Now, the benefit of vertex select is that it's going to be the most detailed. So if you're trying to get in and like make really small kind of adjustments, I would suggest sticking to vertex. If you want to make kind of like wide things, so usually when I'm trying to like round things out, I oftentimes like to come into face select, and I'll just kind of grab like some middle things. And again, if you want to grab more than one thing, just hold down shift. And like usually when we're rounding things out, like the kind of front of the sphere is a little bit further than the rest. So I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to hit Y, and I'm just going to bring it forward a little bit. Just kind of round that part out. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of roundness here. Now, these sides here are giving like, they're giving a square. They're serving a square right now, but we want round. Again, so I'm also just going to kind of grab these. Now, another trick to grab things kind of more quickly, if you know that you want to grab like this whole line, you can just hold shift and double click. And it's just going to grab everything kind of in that loop. And then I'm going to hit grab. And now I did something funky with the way that I laid. So as you can see, it's kind of like pushed in and out, and this is something that I will have to fix later. If you're getting some of those like funkiness where your mesh is kind of like overlapping, the way that you want to fix that is just you're gonna hit Z in wireframe, and now I know this looks a little bit scary, but it's just gonna show you, you just wanna like look and just kind of see what are the ones that are kind of like inverted. So if I get close here, if you can see right here, this point, sorry, I'm trying to get close in there. It's actually not, maybe it's this point. I'm just kind of looking to see what part is kind of inside of each other. Also going to like, I just switched to edge mode so I can see what the lines are. Let's see, I think this line, which I'm having some trouble grabbing, is just like a little bit, it's kind of going over this other line here. So I'm just gonna quickly just kind of bring it out. I don't want it to be in the way. Okay, I'm gonna see how that feels. And again, this is the part where I'm saying it gets really funky, and like, if you're like, Chrissy, you should do something else, like try whatever works for you here, because you want to try to get these vertices to not be on top of each other like this. Like I'm having this like concave, like funky thing going on here that is like not what I want at all. So I'm gonna go back into wireframe just to see what is overlapping. I think this one. I'm just gonna bring this a little bit in. I'm gonna bring this one a little bit out. Just see if I can try to like correct some of these things. Dan, how are you doing over there? How's yours looking?
Mine's looking kind of interesting. I'm going to bring it up on the screen so people can see really briefly. It's not as beautiful as yours. This is
I mean, mine is looking very, very funky right now.
Oops. One thing actually that's happened to me, and I'm going to show this. I actually, there is a way that I can have you see what I'm doing by like sending it back into the Zoom meeting. But let me just explain it. So when I'm in my front orthographic view, and as soon as I go to rotate, it like takes me somewhere like really, not rotate, as soon as I go to like a spin so that I can look at it from a slightly different angle, it takes me to like this weird other place, like far, far away from the model.
Oh no. Okay.
I'm showing it to people. So maybe somebody, if somebody, you don't need to answer this for me right now, I'll figure it out, but I'm just showing it. If somebody who's watching the live knows, I'm sort of demonstrating it. Because it doesn't happen for me on my left panel. Like that works as expected. Like where it thinks the center of the world is or something when I start to spin.
I'm wondering, there could be a couple different things going on. I think I would have to see it.
Yeah. I can work that out with you later. But I think we're in like a pretty good place. Like, I mean, you could probably, I'm moving it back to your screen now, work on like the detailing here, like forever.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is the hard part to, I guess, kind of show, because this is the part that takes forever. Like, because vertices get lost, vertices do things that you did not want it to do, and it really takes a lot of just like manipulating for a while. So I think I would love to show and walk us through getting through the model, because I know probably right now you're like, this looks like nothing. I don't know, but I do want to be able to show you kind of how to export.
Yeah.
And also, maybe I can do something after to walk us through, like after like a different live stream or like a video or something. I can show kind of better how to detail, because trying to do it quickly is kind of what got me into this mess anyway. Yeah.
Well, I think detailing to me also feels like that's like a huge like subject unto itself.
Yeah.
But this is like incredible. I've never made a model like this before, and I was totally able to do it, which is kind of unbelievable. Oh, people are answering my question now. So, but I do think that's what's really important for us to show is, I mean, obviously I see in mine, like there's like file save,
Yeah.
but
So I will show kind of the difference between saving and exporting. And also really quickly, I think I saved my Mew before I connected things. So let me see if I can, let's see what this looks like. Oh, I
oh
moved
yeah, I
it.
would love to see the
Let me
finished view.
see.
Yeah.
I think I moved it to a different file. Da, 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 da. Sorry, you're like seeing my whole desktop right
It's
now.
okay.
But
I can switch to mine. I'm switched to mine for a second while you're looking. So people said I should hit preferences, navigation, orbit around selection.
pull this up.
Tell me when you're ready. I'll switch it back to yours.
Okay, let's go. And
Maybe your anchor point is not center. Click Shift S, cursor to world origin. Cursor to world origin. No.
oh, okay, let's see. Let's try one more.
Right. Marcos writes, and this is exactly how I feel. For beginners like myself, making 2 boxes with rounded corners is a victory. I totally agree. Like I got this sort of like lumpy, frumpy little like beginnings of a Mew, and and I'm just like so excited to see where it goes.
Yay, I'm glad. I wanted to be able to walk everyone through, but it is kind of like a lot for the time that we have, but I'll do my
Yeah.
best to maybe
And
I
also, you know, one thing that I don't know if anyone asked this, but certainly I'm curious is like where, like what are resources that other people that you found useful as you're learning Blender? Like if people wanted to learn more, do more, is there a book that you looked at, a website? I mean, there's are there recommendations that you
yeah.
have?
So first, I mean, YouTube is definitely my best friend. A couple, there's like one modeler I can think of off the brain. I think his name's Olaf 3D. I think has some good tutorials for modeling, but also if you're really interested in animation. Um, I can't think of any more off the head. I can try to gather some things after, just look through. But there, if you just like YouTube, like 3D model human or
Yeah.
3D model or character modeling or
Yeah.
modeling for 3D printing, you'll get some really good things. Also on the Blender website, they have some references built in as well. They have a whole library that you
Right.
can go through that has some really great like tutorials and tips.
And one other thing is like coding train regular viewers probably know about this, but if you're new here because you came because you wanted to learn about Blender, you wanted to learn more about Chrissy's work, we do have a Discord. So I think if I press this button here, the link to the Discord is going to go into the chat. It just did. And so that could also be a place we could create a Blender channel in there. And people could sort of like share resources or ask questions, or even if like,
Yeah, for sure.
we could share some like model files and different things there as well. I mean, Chrissy, you're welcome to try to want to obligate you to suddenly joining our Discord and answering everybody's
I would
questions.
love
But
to.
if you want to pop in there and like that's also a place where people who want to go further with this could reach out to you.
For sure. We can switch back.
Okay.
my-
Look at that.
It looks a little funky. The reason why these are pink right now is because these are actually the reference photos, but I moved them off my desktop. Originally they were on my desktop, and then I moved it off my desktop, and then I moved it back, so the file path just kind of got messed up. So I'm just gonna hide those. So we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so this was like kind of a beginning stage for the Mew. Right now it has the mirror modifier on it on both of these, but it's all none of these are connected right now. So I can just really quickly show you what I would do to first apply the mirror modifier and then kind of sew the head back together and the body and then like connect. I think I'll.
Sure.
Okay. Hopefully I can do that quick so then I can show all the rendering stuff. Okay, so again, right now everything is separate. Let's start with maybe sewing the head back together. So I'm gonna hide body, I'm gonna hide the split, I'm gonna hide all this good stuff. Okay, so we have our head. Now, in order to apply a modifier, you have to be in object mode, which is what we are in right now. And then once you apply it, it's basically, it's not going to mirror anymore. So we're at that point, like we have our head, it's looking decent. We're just going to hit apply. So now all of these vertices are their own again. So if I do something on the right, it's not going to affect the left anymore. So to sew this up, honestly, I'm pretty sure there's a quicker way to do this. And like, I feel like I've done it in the past, but I can't remember that way. So I'm going to show you the way that I do remember. The way that I merge vertices together is I'll just click one, and then I'll click its buddy, and then I'll hit Option M, and then at center. And I'll just go and be a surgeon and stitch Mew right on up. So this is what you can do to, if that mirror modifier left you with a split, you can just sew him right back up by doing this. And as I'm doing this, I'm realizing that if I'm going to do this for the head and the body, we're probably going to take a little minute. But I do want to show what it is like to connect. So I'm just going to sew these bottom ones really quick. And then I'll try to, oops, don't want that.
There's some interesting suggestions in the chat that people are saying also the way that they do this. Like Solar Liner writes, you don't need to, there's a merge mode in the mirror modifier that merges vertices and edges that are close to the mirror plane.
Oh, sweet. So let's try.
And Luis says, select clipping in the mirror and select the middle vertices and move them to center. I don't know what that means, but it sounds like the right idea.
I already applied this modifier, so I have to go back to that, but those sound like really great. Yeah. They sound like really great and simple selections.
It's the same thing as with coding. There's always like, in JavaScript especially, there's like 10 ways to do the same exact thing. So, and everybody has their own sort of like tricks and style.
Thank you for putting those suggestions in there, because that will save me a lot of time. Again, I did want to show how to do that, but I want to make sure that I get in how to render and all that good stuff. So I'm going to skip to that. I'm so sorry.
I think that's great.
Okay.
Well, there's no way that this, first of all, there's no way that this single live stream could comprehensively cover everything there is. So I think
I just want to show everything. I want everyone to be able to have their model.
But what I think what's really amazing that you're doing is just like, I wouldn't have even known where to even start. I can't believe that I've already made a model. And so like, obviously there's, it's, what's the like a mile wide, an inch deep? I've got that wrong. Whatever the expression is, we've got that basic, and there's obviously you can go super deep into Blender. And a couple people also posted some of their YouTube channels that they suggest for further Blender tutorials. So one of the things that I can also do is this, when this video gets archived, it'll be on YouTube, but I can always add an update to the video description.
Oh, cool.
So if there are additional resources or things that we want to add, we'll just put that in the video description.
Perfect. Okay, so if you saw like the kind of screenshot or the image of like the final Mew that was on like the Coding Train page or on my page, this is what the model was. So this was my finished one. Again, I usually do low poly work. I usually keep things actually lower poly than this, but I wanted the Mew to be a little bit smooth. So there was a couple of things that I did to do that, but here's my little Mew. I added, if you're seeing these boxes, I just added some planes so I can create like a stage to take a picture in. That's a whole other, doing backgrounds and stuff is like a whole other thing in Blender that I can't really get into right now. But if you're wondering like, why are these huge planes there? That's just why. You don't need to add planes right now. Okay, so let's say, you got it, you worked through all of the manipulating of the vertices, your Mew is looking good, you want to save it. That's first and foremost, we want to make sure we save. So to save, you're just going to come up here to File, and you just go to Save As, and then you can save the file, whatever you want to save it as. I saved it as Mew Final. I usually save as I move through every process. So like when I finished, which I guess I didn't do that with the, well, I did. Like when I had all my finished pieces, well, first I'll save it in the very beginning. And then as I have all my finished pieces, I'll save that as something. before I connect things, just in case I mess something up. And I'll save it again after connecting, and then I'll save it again once I have like my scene set up. You want to make sure you save, and then you just save it to whatever folder, whatever box, and you just hit save as Blender file. If you want to make this like a OBJ file for putting in processing or any other type of file, you'll then go to export, and you'll see all the different types of files here. So you have OBJ right here, you have STL. STL is good for 3D printing, and a whole other range of files. Okay, so again, if you want to save, saving is one thing, and then exporting is another thing. Exporting is what you'll use to put it in another kind of software. Now, rendering is its own third thing. So like I said, in order to render, so to take a picture of it, you have to have a camera. Okay, so that's what this little doohickey is right here. This is my camera that I had set up. Just to make sure everyone knows how to add a camera, since we deleted it in the previous one, I'll do that with us. So I'm going to delete this. And we're just going to hit Shift-A. Make sure you're in object mode. If you're not in object mode, you just want to hit Tab to get back to object mode. You hit Shift-A, and then you can come down here to camera. Now, sometimes when you add the camera, it's like already, pretty much every time when you add a camera into a scene, it's like already kind of at this like funky angle. It's just like, why are you rotated slightly? I don't really understand this. If you want to clear that, you can just hit Option R. You can hit Option G to put it in the center if it's not in the center already. And then as you can see, it's pointing downwards, so we just want to rotate it. So I'm going to rotate it on the Y. I'm going to do, I'm going to rotate it on the X 90 degrees. So that's going to be like facing our precious Mew. Okay, and then you move things the same way that you move a mesh. You can move the camera. So you just hit G to grab, then you hit Y. And we can move this in front. Okay, now our camera has its own separate view from what we are seeing in the viewport. So viewport view and camera view are different. So if you want to know what your camera is seeing, there's two ways you can do this. One is you can just come to view, and you can go, if we go to view, you go to viewport. If you hit camera, or if you hit 0, you'll see what your camera is seeing. Now, once you rotate though, it's gonna instantly take you out of that. So if you want your camera to kind of move with you, there's a way you can lock that. So to do that, we're gonna first hit N. It's gonna bring up this panel right here. Okay, and we're gonna make sure we're in this view tab, and we're gonna hit lock camera to view. Okay, so then we're gonna hit 0 again to go back into camera mode.
What button did you press to bring up that tab to lock?
You'll hit N.
N,
so
okay.
N as in number, yeah. And then you'll go to the view tab, and then you'll hit lock camera to view. And then now when we rotate, or as we move, the camera moves with us. So this is really good for making sure that like when you're ready to take your picture, that it's at the exact kind of angle that you want it in. So if I want this like bird's eye view, like Mew, or maybe I want this like side view because I think he looks adorable from the side, I can go ahead and just set that right on up. And whatever is within the orange or yellow kind of outline is what you're going to get in your camera. There's different ways that you can adjust your camera, which again, we don't have time to get in here, but there's a whole camera panel over here on the right where you can adjust your camera. We can adjust the dimensions and all that good stuff, but we're not going to worry about that right now. So in order to render then, so we have our camera set up at the angle that we want. I do want to note that if we don't have light in there, your picture is not going to show. So you want to make sure to add a light. I already have a light set up because again, this was my like final scene type of thing. So you'll be able to see what happens here. But just know that if you go to render, if you do the same exact steps that I do here and it's just like completely dark, it's because we don't have a light. And if you want to add light, you can do Shift-A again. And there's a bunch of different types of lights here. You can just kind of arbitrarily throw one in for now, just so you can have some light around you for when you take your picture. Okay, so to render, there's a couple different ways that you can go about rendering as well. I mean, the simplest way is you can come up here to the render tab and you can just hit render image. And now my computer is a little bit slow because it is old, but it will show you.
I got mine.
Yay!
I'm going to switch. I'm going to show it to people.
Sweet.
Everybody, here's my Mew.
And mine just popped up. It's pretty, here we go.
Oh,
So,
I'm putting it back to yours. Yours is much nicer. Back and forth, everybody.
Like a really simple, again, just wall and floor and color, just so he can like be in something, nothing fancy. But that's why you're seeing like the little teal colors, because I put a color onto the wall. Now, so you have your picture. This is what it looks rendered. What you'll do to save it is you'll just go up here to image, and then save as, and then I'll just name it. I'm just going to put it on my desktop and save it. And then when I go to my desktop, we have the image right here. And this is what you can use to share. You can always just take a screenshot, but the screenshot is not going to be as good as the resolution. The benefit of rendering is that you're able to up the resolution. I could make it like better than this if I wanted to. I can change the dimensions of it. When I want to animate, that's how you'll capture it through rendering. So yeah, when you're ready to export your picture, that's all you have to do. You just want to make sure you have a camera and you have a light in there, and you just set your scene up however you want.
So if, this is amazing, by the way. I'm so excited. I don't know why, but that step to me was just so exciting to see the sort of like high quality render. Which, especially when working in like real-time graphics with 3D and processing or P5, generally you don't have that sort of like level of resolution. So I guess one thing, so let's think about this for a second. If people make their own models that they learn to make from today, and they want to share it with you or me or both of us, obviously rendering the image is perfect. Would you like, is Instagram or Twitter, like what's a good, and should we come up with a
plan?
A hashtag?
Hashtags are cute. Let's see.
So I'm gonna pull up, I'm not logged into my Twitter right now. It's gonna post mine, but.
So if you do want to post it either to Twitter or to Instagram and to share it for me to see, I'm Chrissy Brimmage on both.
Okay,
and I check both, so I would love to see it. Please feel free to tag me. I would love to see your Mew. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach me on there as well. I'm happy to answer questions.
I'm pulling it up. So it's on my screen now. I'm pulling up your Twitter, which has, by the way, if you want to see the reel again, it's right there. I posted the reel on my Twitter, which Chrissy has here at the top of hers as well. Let's pull up your Instagram also, so people can see it. All right, and there's Mew. There's exactly that image.
Yay. Awesome. Perfect. So yeah, please feel free to share. Please feel free to experiment. Feel free to ask questions. I'll make sure to be. One
thing that came up in the chat, like so we can answer maybe. We should probably wrap up. Let Chrissy and everybody have a break, because we've been going for a very long time. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us, showing. It's like incredible the amount of information that you were able to pack into such a like one singular live stream. I know if I had my whole weekend free, I'd just be would be stuck in Blender, I think.
Yes.
So definitely have to find some more time. A couple people mentioned in the chat. That you can shade it with smooth on or smooth shade?
Yeah, so you can.
What is that?
So let me get out of this rendering here. Let me go back in Blender. So I usually don't use smooth shading because I do low poly, but if you want to, you can just, and let me add in like a different like model, because this is already pretty smooth. Or let me just go back to one of the other ones that I had open. So maybe like, oops, I forgot that I moved it. Okay, so like this one, for example. Let's say that I wanted to just make, like I wanted to render where it's not so boxy, or I wanted to the shading to be smoother just automatically, what you can do is just right click. Whoops. First, sorry, we're going to tab into edit. And I'm just going to right click.
Amaryllis writes, this stream was the best as I have a good confidence of making low poly. The stream gave me next level confidence. And the people in the chat are suggesting, I think I suggested it, but people are thumbs upping it. Our hashtag is MewTrain. So MEWTRAIN. Right,
Love that. Love that. So yeah, okay. So with that question, you have the choice of having with it being flat or have it being smooth. So I've been doing flat because again, I do low poly stuff, but if you want it to be smooth, just right click. Whoops, make sure you're on the object and then right click and then hit just shade smooth. You see it automatically.
Oh yeah, wow.
Yeah. The way that I made the Mew though smooth in that final reference was actually a modifier. So I can show that as well. And let me move my zoom screen again in front. So I'm just gonna take this head here. I'm going to go to the modifier tab, and I'm just going to apply that because I don't really need it anymore. And then the way that I did that was I went to, where is it? Subdivision surface. And it automatically just kind of smooths things out for you.
Okay.
And then you just hit apply.
So in your, the final Mew version that you made, that's the step that you added?
Yeah, because I like I said, I love low poly, and I wanted those kind of like planes in there. So I usually do the subdivision surface, but if you just want it to be completely round, you can go ahead and just switch right over to shade and smooth.
So funny story is that when I first was experimenting with some new 3D printers that we got at NYU, my kids asked me to 3D print a Pikachu. And so I found some model that online, and I just like downloaded it and 3D printed it. It was great. Is there like anything you have to keep in mind? Like, could that Mew that you made be 3D printed, or do you have to like conform to some specification? Like, you can't have the model do this twist or this turn. I mean, it probably depends on what 3D printer you're using. I'm sure I'm opening up a huge can of worms here, but in the basic sense, is there anything, if people want to 3D print what they've made, is there any extra steps they should think about?
Yeah, so I'm still honestly trying to figure this out myself because I started modeling in 2018, but then that first model that I made, it was to be printed, but I had someone else printed. I just bought my first printer last year. And what I am learning is that there definitely are things that you have to keep in mind. Just off the brain, some things that I'm thinking about are like inverted vertexes. So like how I had some of those, like when I was playing around with that initial model and I had some vertexes that were kind of like under other vertexes that can cause errors. But honestly, there are softwares out there already that people have made, like open source things, that will correct your model for you. So at this stage, if you're like, I want to print things right away, but I'm not sure if my model is kind of up to par for that, I can give you a link to one of them so that you can just pop your model in it and it'll correct things for you and then you can go ahead and print it. But yeah, there definitely are things that you have to learn about on that front, but that's like definitely a whole other beast to kind of tackle.
And people in the chat are agreeing with you that low poly aesthetic has a beauty all of its own. Someone else wrote, Vedang writes, voxel art also looks cool as well, which I would agree. Yeah, I mean, I think in many ways, sometimes you can get so wrapped up into creating something that's photorealistic or so highly detailed that you can sort of like lose sight of your artistic intentions. In a lot of ways, you can express yourself or be more creative through abstraction and through lowering of the resolution. So, and I definitely see that in your work. I mean, I mentioned this to you before we came on, the figure pointing at the sort of like planetary like orb that's just filling the space with stars and light is just so, to me, just is so beautiful. And there's no color there. There's no fine details, but there's something about the energy that emanates from that simple scene that's like really impactful.
Thank you.
Marcos writes, usually 3D printer software converts 3D models to what a 3D printer can easily read. Yeah. So it sounds like that's also along the same lines of what you were saying.
There's also like an added step of putting it in, what is it called? Oh gosh, I cannot remember. splicing software. I'm forgetting what it's called, but I use something called Kira, where it's like once you make the model.
Oh, I've used that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you can correct things in there as well. So you
I
don't
think
have
yeah. Awesome. Well, I think this is a nice point to wrap up. If everybody in the chat could give a little love and thank you to Chrissy for spending so much time with us today. I mean, I feel like I often teach new things to people on the coding train, and so I don't usually get to experience the other way around. It was like such a thrill to have like something that I really don't know anything about and to try to follow along. And I'm so excited. As soon as I get off, I'm gonna share my model on Twitter and all of that. And I hope that all of you will also share. If you want to learn more about Chrissy's work, again, the link to her website is, I'm pulling it up right now. Oh, you don't see my screen. I'm going to switch to that. I'm pulling it up, is in the video subscription, chrissybrimmage.com. You can go to her Instagram as well as Twitter. Make sure our hashtag is MewTrain. Hopefully, I'm just going to like, I shouldn't be doing that. I'm just going to switch off my screen for a second because I'm just going to check no results for MewTrain. So that's good. I always worried like I'm going to pull up something on Twitter and by accident I don't want to pull up something without looking at it first. So you can see that there's no results for MewTrain. So we can fill the universe with beautiful 3D models made in Blender and MewTrain. And I'm certainly making a commitment to, in a follow-up stream, try to see if I can take my OBJ model that I exported and bring it into processing or P5, which I know that will be of interest to people. And we can always consider sometime in a future date, if Chrissy wants to come back and show some additional steps, of course, you're more than welcome to do that.
I can also make my final Mew available, like the file, the OBJ file. So if someone does want to go ahead and start playing around with it and processing, I'll make that available as
That's a great idea. Yeah, so that's a great idea. And I'll try to figure out, just look in the video subscription, but certainly if you join the Discord, if we have a web page or a GitHub repo or something where we put some of these materials, I'll make sure to link to that for sure. Let me also just briefly, I'm going to check, I think if I pull up the live stream, I've saw so many donations come in. I'm just going to pull this up and it looks like, I wonder if we either exactly reached the goal of 500 or we went over it and YouTube just doesn't list it if amounts to over it. But so that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm looking for my train whistle, which is my very strange way of saying thank you to people. That's wonderful that we're able to support. Please, if you want to learn more about the Tender Foundation, or if you want to, get involved or volunteer, make a donation, check out their website. It's thetenderfoundation.com, and I believe also Tender Foundation is on Instagram as well. So if you want to. I don't know that it makes sense to share our 3D models with the Tender Foundation, but why not? Give them some love if you make a 3D model that you were inspired from this live stream. So that, I think, really wraps them. I'm always like so awkward trying to end these live streams. We've been here for quite a long time. I think we've been here for, has it been 2.5 hours? I routinely, one of the running jokes that I'm like, I can only live stream for an hour today. I have to be somewhere in an hour. 4 hours later, I'm still trying to debug some code. So this is just par for the course. I can't thank you enough. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on Chrissy's reel just to show her beautiful artworks again as I play a little music and we finish up and say goodbye. I have some more guest conductor videos planned, probably not till August. I'm hoping to do one more Coding in the Cabana tutorial video sometime in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. And I'm going to have one probably last live stream of the summer because I'm going to be not available most of August next week sometime. So, if you do the things where you subscribe and press all the notification buttons, you'll get information about that, but you certainly don't have to. But if I'm going to plug anything, I would plug the Discord, which is a welcoming, friendly place for beginners and everyone to engage with each other and ask questions and get help. And certainly if there's anything I can do to help make the Discord a more positive and welcoming experience for you, you should definitely reach out and email info@thecodingtrain.com. And if you want to get involved in the guest conductor series, we're using this right now to amplify Black voices in tech. You can write to cy@thecodingtrain.com. That's CY at thecodingtrain.com. Okay, anything else that I missed, Chrissy, that you want to say before we go?
I just want to say thank you to you and also, of course, Sai, and also to the Coding Train community for, first of all, for sticking it out for, what was it, 2 hours? 2.5 hours? Jeez. Thanks so much for being here and just for letting me be a part of the community. This was really great. I enjoyed this so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, so I'm pressing this button to go to reel.
Okay.
Enjoy the reel. I'm putting on a little music to go along with it. And I don't know if it's playing. It is. Oh no, it's not because it's, hold on, I'm gonna fix this. Technical, I can do this. Add audio, input capture, add existing laptop sound, unmute. There we go. Okay, and now I'm gonna mute myself and Chrissy and just say goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please share, hashtag